The world has come to an end, a realm consumed by death and despair. And the man who fought until the end, the sword god, Karserian Levandain. But as if guided by fate, a door to another world opened, beyond which lay the earth. Still pristine, untouched, monsters infiltrated the world, causing it to succumb to despair. The people fought until their last breath to safeguard the place they called home. Among those brave souls was the protagonist of this story, Carcerian Levandien, who fought against the threat with equal ferocity. Many years passed with him, fighting countless monsters, relentlessly piling up corpses with the one sword he had, and without a shred of fear in his heart. Finally, a day came when he fought against Aaron's brother from another mother. That bastard was a tough nut to crack. The battle was brutal, but he finally finished off the piece of shit. In the aftermath of the battle, he too succumbed to death, but fate had other plans. With his soul drifting through this endless void, he met a human boy from a planet known as Earth. The boy's name was Seo Du-hun, who was on the verge of death for some unknown reason. Before dying, he wanted to make a simple request to Dandain, who immediately refused, even before listening to what this boy wanted to say. After all, bro just wanted to die in peace. He was done with all the bullshit. He lost his country to monsters, he lost his loved ones, and finally died like a dog. While this boy, Seo Du-hun, actually didn't want to live either. He desperately wanted his family to have a good life. Well, it seems Dandain is finally willing to listen to this boy's request. The boy lights up like a kid in a candy store and plucks up the courage to say he wants his family to live in peace. And so, our boy gladly takes on the job of protecting this boy's family, and finds himself on Earth, now swinging in the body of that teenager. Du-hun. Our boy is on a mission to infiltrate the Nansen Gate, which is rated C for obvious reasons. Only registered heroes are allowed in, so the automated machine asks him to scan his ID card, which our man obviously doesn't have. He simply crashes through the guarded and authorized building to enter the gate, triggering the security alarm about the infiltration. Once inside, he starts walking, trying to find monsters to smash. That's when he stumbles upon a group of heroes, people who are officially licensed and have permission to be there. They assume our guy is someone who got lost and offer to show him the way out, especially since they too are heading for the exit. Du-hun remains silent, giving off a weird vibe. Even these heroes realize something isn't right. He's wearing casual clothes and doesn't look like a hero at all. Sure, porters these days dress more casually, but our guy's attire is too simple for his own good. And what's with that bag on his back? For all they know, he's probably some clueless porter who was abandoned by the group he originally came with. But they're not so sure. Du-hun finally speaks, acknowledging why they're so skeptical, but makes it clear he came here on his own, without any hero group. Upon hearing this, one of the heroes sighs, understanding the reason for our guy's presence. He has seen many cases of people getting hard on the idea of becoming a hero and hunting monsters after watching some flashy TV commercials. But that burst of motivation can get someone killed very quickly if they storm gates recklessly without going through the legal procedures. First, you have to get official hero certification. Then you have to go through training and testing. Not to mention that this gate is ranked for a reason. If you're a rookie who just started his career, you'd better go find an F-rank gate before you actually lose your life. After hearing this guy blabbering and generously handing out advice no one asked for, Dojin makes it very clear that he doesn't need any shit. Naturally, the hero crew is perplexed to see this boy respond so coldly. After all, they were just trying to help, so they get a little angry, but the leader tells his companions to calm down. If the boy doesn't want help, then fine, leave him alone. The leader trusts that this boy will eventually learn the hard way, because you shouldn't cover your ears when someone wise speaks. They hope he finds out how unforgiving these gates are. Unlike TV shows that glorify being a hero as if it's the second coming of Christ. Soon enough, Dojin finally encounters a giant troll staring him down, ready to eat him alive. The monster unleashes an attack, only to miss and hit the ground. Bro moved so fast the troll couldn't even process what the hell happened. Then he raises his fist and delivers a devastating punch, strong enough to blow the orc's face off. It's basically something out of One Punch Man or Omni-Man on a rampage. Now that the monster is out of the picture, here comes the juicy part, loot time baby. First, he grabs the sword that bastard was carrying. Then he uses that same sword to dig further into the monster's body and extracts a shining gem. It's actually a low-grade magic stone, so insignificant that Daojin had never bothered with them in his previous life. But since he's broke now, he has no other choice. Suddenly, more monsters swarm the area, pissed off after seeing their friend decapitated. Daojin turns around and throws the gem so fast that it literally blows one of their heads off. The other two idiots charge as if they have a death wish they want to fulfill, while Du-hun is more than happy to grant it as he wreaks havoc. We return to the hero group, walking through this monster-infested territory. Currently, their minds are still stuck on the encounter they had with that young man. The orange-haired woman is truly worried about Du-hun's well-being, fearing he might end up dead. But the pack leader assures her that's highly unlikely. If he's some unauthorized type who broke into the gate, the control center agents will find him soon. Those agents on missions they are always B rank or higher. And since this gate is C rank, there's no way he'll die here. As long as the boy stays away from recklessly pouncing on monsters, he has no chance of losing his life. The bald guy agrees with his leader's assessment. He's pretty sure the arrogant brat must be trembling in fear, waiting for the agents to save his ass from doom. Well, the story is pretty much the opposite. It's our guy who is literally making these plus-sized sandbags tremble in fear. One punch and the prey has fallen. He's so fast they can't even touch him, much less crush him under the weight of their swords. He appears right behind one of the idiots and kicks him so hard it shatters his head. With all the idiots down, he grabs one of their swords and proceeds to harvest the sweet magic stones for himself. After a while, he's finished filling his bag and is ready to leave, though. Honestly, he's quite disappointed with today's haul. All those low-quality gems are dead weight in his bag. Right. Then one of the agents spots him and calls his companions before our man can fully turn around. Those suited men stare him down. First, they explain that they are from the gate control center and suggest he show his hero registration card. If he is not registered, he has to go to the control center with them. Our man is not sure about that, which makes the suited guy tense up even more and grow colder, insisting he cooperate and follow proper procedures. The only response the suited men get is anger etched all over our man's face. And all this unnecessary drama just ruins his mood. But brother has no strength to argue. He turns around and leaves. Since words don't work, the suits threaten handcuffs if he refuses to obey. If necessary, physical force can be used. One of the more impatient ones dares to grab our man's hand and threatens him with the injuries he'll suffer if he refuses to cooperate. And what's worse, all responsibility will fall on his shoulders, so it's best for everyone to resolve things with words, not with violence. It seems the Dujins have had enough of such blabbering, so he grabs that bastard's hand again and warns him to stop sticking in his way like a thorn. This chilling warning makes the poor suited guy instinctively freak out. A shiver runs down his spine. The other two bastards pull out their magic-infused staffs. They are actually grade 4 magic staffs, powerful enough to subdue an orc. But they don't have enough power to physically harm our man, so he aggressively twists the bastard's hand, making him whine like the whiny bitch he is. Bro then delivers one last warning. They'd better leave now, if they don't want to lose the last shred of dignity they have left. Finally, the suited men are forced to retaliate with violence. They do their best to mark our man with the magic staffs, but none succeed. Our man delivers a crushing blow right to a bastard's back. Then he punches another in the gut. Next, he focuses on the glasses guy, the last man standing. The last guy feels it coming and tenses up. Du-hun vanishes, disappearing into thin air, making the bastard panic at seeing a man literally vanish. Then out of nowhere comes a sneak attack straight to the gut, making the bastard reel in pain. It seems Du-hun is tired of all this crap and agents chasing him, so he finally starts thinking about registering as a hero. After all, the agent assures him that as long as he avoids shady or illegal things, no one will come chasing him. Du-hun then questions this thing called a rift, a question that completely baffles the people. Quick context on how this world works. There are multiple passages connecting to another world where strange monsters live. These passages are scattered throughout the world. Precious stones collected from the corpses of monsters are used as new energy sources, so they are highly coveted. Because of this, the government oversees these passages to maintain full control over each of them. Each controlled and opened passage by the government for heroes is called a gate. Passages that are not controlled or closed are known as rifts. Returning to our guy, who finds it ridiculously annoying that these suits follow him everywhere. accusing him of trespassing no matter which gate he passes through. The poor agent explains that if an unregistered hero enters a gate without permission, the control center is automatically notified and agents waiting nearby are immediately dispatched. Since our guy is thinking of entering a rift, the agent makes it clear that they are not as easy to access as any gate. Penetrating a rift carries strict punishment, no warnings or deals. Du-hun isn't interested in hearing any of that, so he grabs the poor guy by the face and tosses him aside like a trash bag. By now, the poor agent regrets not calling headquarters. This shit is way above his pay grade. Before leaving, Du-hun takes one last look at the agent's scum lying there, thinking how weak this guy actually is. The weakling seems to have a fractured arm and is busy shouting threats, promising to catch our guy and throw him behind bars. The scene changes to the Seoul Gas and Digital Complex in Guncheon District. This gigantic building is now known as the Heroes Complex. Here all trades related to magic stones or anything found in the gates go down. And nowadays this place is busier than ever. Do-hun can be seen heading towards one of the shops that deal in buying and selling magic stones. Upon entering, he is greeted by this Gen Z bastard, busy scrolling through brain-rotting instarials. When Dojin says he wants to sell some magic stones, the shrewd shop owner immediately begins to preach about his business, claiming that this branch offers the highest prices to its customers. He even goes so far as to say they are the best in the entire country. Dojin finally lays all the low-quality gems smeared in monster blood on the counter, causing the shop owner to make a bitter expression as if he had been punched from behind. He's truly disgusted by all the blood clinging to the stones. Despite everything, he doesn't complain and goes ahead with the transaction. Du-hun is asked if he wants coffee while they process the stones. A while later, he is drinking coffee while the shop owner carefully wipes the blood from the stones. Afterward, the owner calculates the total amount to be paid. There are 12 low-grade, 16 mid-grade, and 5 high-end low-grade magic stones. After deducting a 40% commission, Du-hun will receive around 5.5 million won. Well, our guy is not very comfortable handing over 40% as commission. It feels unfair because he did all the hunting and wasted his time. So how the hell does this bastard think he's entitled to nearly half the money? The shop owner proudly claims he's being generous, charging only 40%, especially since all competitors in this business charge 45% or more. He's so sure of himself that he even offers Dojin his stones back if he doesn't like the price. After all, no one will offer more, or at least that's what this scumbag claims. Our guy doesn't fall for that trap and starts putting his precious stones back into his bag. Seeing that his tricks aren't working, the bastard grabs Du-hun's hand before he leaves and demands compensation for the appraisal. And the coffee he drank. It's 30,000 won for the appraisal, plus another 10,000 for the coffee. Not to mention all the blood he had to clean off that ruined his face towel. Adding it all up, Du-hun supposedly owes the guy about 350,000 won. Do-hun is not going to yield to these unreasonable demands, no matter how much this crazy bastard pushes. Seeing that nothing works, the bastard stoops to street tactics and threatens Do-hun with the C-class heroes he has as guards. Just then those big guys burst through the back door, asking why they were called. If someone is causing trouble, they are ready to take care of them. Du-hun, in response, casts a sharp glare at the bastard, who stares back with equal intensity. A while passes and the scene changes to the terrified, sweating face of the shop owner, who had been acting arrogant as if he were the protagonist, but got a reality check. When Du-hun took down his 3 pigs, without breaking a sweat, making it clear who the real MC is. My boy then approaches the counter and smoothly negotiates the commission down to 1% without asking questions. We all know there's no arguing when someone like Du-hun stares right into your soul like that. So the deal goes through, and Du-hun leaves with a good chunk of money for the loot he got with his sweat, or rather with his fists. His grandmother and sister are totally amazed by the enormous amount of money. Grandma even suspects that Du-hun is cheating her with fake bills. But the boy quickly clarifies, saying the money came from lending money to a friend who set up a business that ended up doing very well. Grandma isn't sure her grandson has such a friend. He tries to convince Grandma with another lie that it was a childhood friend. In the end, Grandma stops asking questions, at least the important ones. Meanwhile, Du-hun's sister is super proud of her older brother for making their family rich. The loving brother pats her head and gives her hope about the life of luxury they will live from now on. The girl just jumps for joy about being rich, seeing her so happy. Du-hun realizes he is making progress, fulfilling a promise he once made. He remembers the words of the owner of the body he is possessing, whose last wish was for his grandmother and his stepsister, Jun-young, to live safely and happily. That poor man disappeared just before Du-hun could say anything, and when he woke up, he had become CEO Du-hun. Now his only mission is to ensure this small family lives safely and comfortably. To do this, he wants to buy the safest house in Korea, which currently costs 110 billion won. For him, earning money won't be a problem, as long as he regains his original strength. This world shares many similarities with the one he came from, the one that was destroyed. The only major difference is that here the rifts, the gates and monsters are slightly weaker than in the world he once saw fall, who held the title of Sword God in his previous life. This place is nothing but a sandbox. So far, he has only been fighting at 1/10 of his original power. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and the visitor says he wants to see CEO Du-hun. Bro gets up and decides to answer. When he opens the door, he is met by 2 thugs standing outside. These guys are here to claim a debt that Du-hun has for a whopping 48 million yuan. Seeing this, Du-hun is sure they are loan sharks. The real CEO Du-hun borrowed money before leaving this world forever. Although it was supposed to be only 5 million yuan, originally for his grandmother's hospital bills. These guys are charging crazy interest to demand 10 times the original amount in no time. They know he's been making money through gates lately, so they want him to cough up the money, since it's all documented in the contract, but the only payment these bastards get is a punch to the big guy's face. That single punch sends the poor thug flying, leaving his partner with his jaw hanging in disbelief. Our man gives the scrawny bastard a death glare to remind him that he has already returned over 9 million won. So if you do the math, these bastards should be paying him interest, with another punch that makes the bastard cry like a bitch. Du-hun tells him to tell his boss that Du-hun's is coming to pay him a visit. The scene then cuts to the bustling mall, teeming with life. See the sweet union enlightening a child in a teddy bear shop. Du-hun brought her here shopping. Today she's free to buy whatever she wants, you know. Our guy wasn't always that soft-hearted pohoki in his previous life. It's Du-hun's original memories that revitalized his dry emotions. It makes his heart warm to see how Du-hun kindly treats Yoon-young, even though she's only his half-sister. So he wants to keep doing the same and make sure to give all the love he can to this child. The girl finally chooses a plush toy she really wants. It's a small but very cute bunny. She chooses it modestly, making sure not to be extravagant. But Du-hun chooses a bigger plush toy for her. He doesn't want her to hold back at all. It's her day, and she can choose what her heart desires. Without a second thought about money, they both treat themselves to a good meal. Also, while enjoying their meals, an unknown voice shouts our guy's name. It's a middle-aged woman, followed by a group of bodyguards. This chubby MILF seems like another chatterbox who loves to hate our guy. First, she points out his lousy fashion sense. Then she questions the girl sitting next to him. She dares to say that he must have gotten someone pregnant and had that girl as his mother brought him into the world. Of course, these sharp jabs infuriate our guy beyond anything. Meanwhile, the girl has no idea who this lady is or why she's talking so carelessly. The Stemoth then quickly turns her attention to the girl and asks her name. The girl introduces herself as Lee Yoon-yan, which makes this trash MILF realize she's Du-hun's sister. Out of habit, the woman jabs at her clothes too, calling her a mess. This bitch doesn't spare his late mother either, and all this is really getting on our guy's nerves. But for some reason, he holds back and doesn't try to get aggressive with her provocations. Even this MILF is quite surprised by how Du-hun is maintaining his composure, not falling for her traps. So this bitch decides to go one step further. This fat woman dares to ask a child the meaning of whore. Well, that's the last straw. Du-hun explodes and calls her an ugly woman who belongs to a tribe of orcs. Of course, the woman is left wide-eyed and blank-minded after being caught off guard. Let's get some context to understand why Du-hun has tolerated this woman so much. You see, Du-hun was born as an illegitimate child and lived in poverty. At the tender age of 7, his mother died, and he barely made it to his father's house, as his father married another woman. He was rejected by everyone. The situation worsened when his father's legitimate wife had a child, and Du-hun was completely ignored. Things got so bad that he was thrown out of the house he lived in, so he lived with his half-brother at his grandmother's house. As our guy reflects, he feels sorry for the original Daojin who had to endure all this, and still tried to keep a smile on his face as if he had no pain in his life. But now he wants to change everything. It seems this woman is his stepsister, which explains why he was trying to hold back. But he won't tolerate her anymore. He remembers how he shared a roof with this orc of a woman. And she's as disgusting as ever. Not only does she have a twisted personality and an orc-like appearance, but she's also dumb as a rock. He further shatters her spirit by dropping brutal bombs about how she's a ruin with an inferiority complex. That's why she projects her insecurities onto others by calling them ugly. She's nothing but a gold digger obsessed with others. And that's the truth the world should know. As he continues to hammer her under his sharp blows, the entire mall watches them as if they are the center of attention. Mrs. Orko is totally furious and about to lose her temper. But then Du Hun's stepmother walks in. Seeing her mother, Mrs. Orko approaches her like the whining bitch she is. She complains about how this boy silences her with words. But this mother is aggravated to see her daughter whining like that, and silences her with a cold glare. I'm not gonna lie. Brothers, they have a stepmother from hell. At first, I even thought the orc woman was his stepmother. The hot mom turns her attention to our guy and greets him with utmost grace. She invites him to come back home and have a fun time. But Du Hun knows very well that the facade his stepmother puts on is fake. After all, she is the one who caused the most misfortune and discomfort in the 12 years he lived with them. The woman keeps reminding Du Hun of things he never wants to remember, triggering his PTSD and causing him to go into serious mode with a colder tone than your mother's jokes. Our man tells this bitch to get lost. It's a big slap to her dignity that someone younger than her talks back to her. She turns around and leaves with the last shred of dignity she has left, although she didn't expect him to talk back so sharply. She wonders if he's the same guy who would lower his head even when she slapped him for no reason. Her bitch of a daughter follows her, along with her bodyguards who also follow the two ladies. Honestly, these guards played the perfect role of mannequins in this ordeal. Let's shift our attention back to our guy. It seems these two girls totally ruined the time our duo was having, so our guy decides to go his own way too. The way he reacted to his adoptive family was intentional. He wanted to make one thing clear: the CEO Du Hun, who couldn't even speak for himself, is gone. It's about time his trashy family realized that. Then we see a Mercedes zooming down the road. Inside the car, we see the trash mother and daughter. The daughter is angry at her mother for calmly leaving instead of putting Du Hun in his place. As she vents her frustration and curses our guy for the humiliation suffered, the mother orders her manager to respond because Du Hun is still alive, while Baldy has no idea how this guy is alive. It doesn't match the reports. The woman screams at the bullshit this man is spouting. How the hell can he be alive if they made sure the job was done? And of course the poor man assures her that he will investigate the matter again and make sure the job is executed correctly this time. Meanwhile, the trash daughter has no idea what her shady mother has been up to all this time. She gets nervous hearing about killing and dying. Finally, the mother poses a question to her daughter, asking if she feels anything for Du Hun. This catches the fat pig off guard, making her blush and become nervous. Actually, she's worried that Du Hun might die, because if grandpa or dad find out, they'll be in serious trouble. The mother grabs her daughter by the mouth tightly and drills her to stay away from her business. The mother is determined to claim Du Hun's life without any plan to spare him, especially after how he dared to talk back to her. Getting rid of him is the best revenge she can think of. A decade ago, the world took a turn into chaos with the appearance of the rift. This terrifying dimension gave birth to monsters emerging from the portal, armed with the goal of massacring humans on sight. Their terror didn't stop. It was incessant and eventually demolished the world, scarring it with destroyed cities engulfed in flames. However, just like the emergence of dark forces, came the rise of light in the form of brave warriors called heroes. With their appearance, the first discovery of mana stones was made from the corpses of defeated monsters. Back to the present, the Du Huns going somewhere reflect on how monotonous quickly changed the world's reliance on traditional energy sources. Due to their key role, countries decided to focus their attention on emerging rifts, basically claiming priority over them to extract resources. With the current state of the world in motion, all its industrialization depends entirely on the concept of rifts, and on the reliance on heroes. And because of that, the profession that can be classified as a hero reaps great rewards. A high and steady salary can only be achieved by becoming a proper hero. Do-hun's reached his destination, and it's actually the Young T-Jumpo HCS Capital establishment. I know it's a tongue twister, but you guys will see why he came here. Soon he finds himself entering the building, and at first glance, the boss and his clowns. They look like typical thugs who want to scare people with their ugly faces. But Do-hun is quite calm about the situation. The boss puts out his cigarette and points out our guy's audacity, not only for beating up his thugs, but also for showing up at the door. This shows that Do-hun doesn't give a damn about anyone. He slyly tells the organization owner that, in reality, it's Do-hun himself who is at a true loss. That assertion is ridiculous from the boss's perspective, so he asks for clarification on what our guy means. Do-hun clarifies that he has actually come here to receive his rightful compensation. After all, he has endured mental, physical, and material losses all this time because of the existence of these clowns with their strong and serious words. The boss has noticed a significant change in the boy's personality. Something in the boy has changed. He's no longer the soft-spoken spirit or the kind person he was. Plus, there's the added evidence that this same boy destroyed the lackeys he sent to his door. Taking all this into account, the boss's main suspicion is that Seo Do-hun must have experienced a unique type of awakening throughout his experiences at the gate. Despite knowing this, the guy still decides to act arrogant and tells Do-hun that his new confidence, due to his awakening, will become his own downfall. The hypocrite calls out our guy for being overly confident in his abilities. And to back up his claims, he brings in a bunch of growling men to intimidate him. Of course, he can gather all the muscle he needs, but to the sword god's experience, they are practically insects in comparison. The boss talks an earful and claims that even awakened ones end up getting killed like dead weight. And low-ranking heroes. In the end, the funniest part is that Bro is under the assumption that Seo Do-hun is nothing beyond the level of a D-class hero, and that his organization can easily stomp on someone as weak as that. Meanwhile, Do-hun relaxes on the back sofa while five guys stare at him without showing a hint of amusement. He orders the boss to sit back down. The boss is stunned to hear him continue speaking in his previous tone, while Do-hun emphasizes with a serious face that he's not finished talking. Hearing him say something like that, one of the guys decides to get cocky and challenges Do-hun. Amusingly, our guy cheerfully takes off his glasses, which adds to their confusion. And then he lands a Mike Tyson ballistic universal machine gun. Rocket punch 9,000 right on his damn face. The guy goes flying from the impact, while his friends are left speechless. But that's not all, because the beating is distributed among the group, as Do-hun takes down another. It should be noted that while he's beating them up, he's also calmly laying out his points, sharing his knowledge of the boss's shady secret dealings under the guise of a money-lending business. Do-hun tries to punch down an orange-haired thug and demonstrates his knowledge of the fake ID business he runs. Once the punch is delivered, he tells the boss that he's looking for a hero ID to officially register as one and earn money, dodging the final guy's blow. Do-hun returns the blow with triple the love. With his special sleep routine, it works 100% of the time. Do-hun continues with his demands, stating that he needs a foolproof ID that won't cause him problems in the future. The boss is dumbfounded by what happened in the span of a few seconds. Our guy reminds him that he only has one day to fake his identity. By the way, some of the men didn't intervene in the fight, which is a compliment to NPCs, because they are the ones who defy God by being level 1 rookies in most stories. The boss is tripping through life as he begins to question and evaluate Do-hun's skill level. At the very least, this guy seems to be B-class in strength. Bro is so lost in thought that he has to be reminded by the boy to snap out of it. He happily accepts the job too. Finally, Do-hun politely grabs his shoulder and contrasts it with an intimidating expression on his face. He wants to know if Hon Ijo, his stepmother, ordered him beaten. Of course, it's pretty much like that, as shown by the conversation he had earlier with his daughter and his assistant. The boss is speechless until Do-hun forces his grip so hard that the guy screams in pain. Even his overalls look helpless for his boss. I have to say, they really should change their barbers too. Anyway, the boss breaks down and reveals her atrocious strategy. This cruel and scheming woman actually wanted to suck the life out of Do-hun's bank account. forcing him into such financial instability that he has no other way but to take his own life to escape it. Now that is a definition of a damn evil plan, especially towards her son. Even if he's thrown out. Those were her orders. Du-hun hears this, and after enough of his pleas and cries, he sets the man free, questioning if that is also one of the reasons why he was locked inside the gate. The boss becomes an innocent who had nothing to do with the incident, even revealing that he wouldn't be paid for the execution if he died inside the gate. That's probably a plausible reason why he couldn't have done something like that. And it already has Du-hun thinking. He utters the words Kang Chialwu, which is actually the name of the guy who brought him to the gate in the first place. Indeed, Du-hun wants to know every last bit of information about the guy by tomorrow. With his 2 demands laid out, he politely leaves, completely changing the atmosphere of the room he first entered. After that conversation, Du-hun remains in a deep contemplative state. Again, the real CEO. Du-hun only had one wish. He wanted to protect his little sister and his beloved grandmother no matter what. On top of everything that happened, this just adds another layer of misery and shows the kind of life the poor boy had to endure being helpless. But there's no need to worry, because the sword god is willing to do whatever it takes to set things right. The next day, guess what? Our guy is officially registered, and he's also B rank, which is convenient. Unlike all the other stories, where the main character just has to be the lowest rank possible for style points. Tapping the card into the machine, it proves the card's legitimacy, because it recognizes his identity in the system. However, it warns him that the rank is still lower than the dangerous mission he's about to undertake. This proves quite annoying for our guy, who thinks he perhaps should have messed with the bastard to assign him a higher rank, and thus not encounter these problems, despite the system's repetitive warnings not to enter the gate far above his level. Dojin doesn't give a damn and goes anyway. Let's talk about the details of the Night Island gate. It's actually just a B-rank gate, but logic doesn't mean a B-rank hunter can survive it. Heroes are always recommended a class higher than the gate's rank for mission safety. Anyway, the dungeon's scale is considered D-rank, meaning it's sprawling, and will be difficult for solo hunting. The good thing, however, is that it's in the form of tunnels, which means in some capacity. Solo hunting won't be as difficult for him, this time due to the gate's scale. It is highly recommended that a hero of rank take on the task, but the words risk and danger don't exist in our guy's dictionary. If anything, the worst that could happen is he would have to face an entire fleet of monsters in a narrow tunnel with barely any space. Dojin smiles at his first opponent, who is a giant snake with a chaotic purple aura. For most heroes, this would be a sign of terror, but for him, it's a sign of good luck as he prepares his gauntlets for the battle to begin. Oh, and by the way, the snake also has a bunch of its friends, and their tongues remind me of the Alien movie. Anyway, they do their best to attack, but it's useless, because our guy is a killing machine, who snatches and collects mana stones as if the monsters never existed. The murderous Black Viper is a monster class that is known for its hyperactive paralyzing venom that can take down anyone, even with the slightest contact. With that in consideration, Du-hun charges to propel himself at bullet speed, and goes full throttle. In no time, he's about to slice and dice the creature all over its body, splattering blood until he splits the monster in half. With the creature defeated, Du-hun realizes that his equipment, the gloves he bought, are ensuring the venom doesn't come into contact with him, and for the price of 300,000 won, they are holding up. Returning to the hunting session, Du-hun turns his attention to 4 more of these ugly lizards, limbless, and begins to fire right through their heads with his powerful speed. More and more blood splatters until the vipers are sent to the afterlife. Du-hun stands there, busy looking for a bunch of magic stones, scratching the monster's flesh. To his disappointment, there are no magic stones around. But this is in accordance with the rules of the previous or original world, and in that these monsters only have a 3% drop rate for mana stones. This means he has to hunt at least hundreds of them for good loot. On his way, he discovers Mr. Bonehead. You might be thinking it's the boss, but the Dohans have a different opinion. And as he asks the oversized snake if it's the boss monster, because the snake will definitely answer like a good friend. Anyway, Dohans thinks it's good that this big guy has appeared, because he won't have to worry about getting lost anymore. Launching into an immediate attack, he plans to finish the battle quickly to go home, but then something unexpected happens. Despite successfully landing a raw blow, his punch has no effect on the creature. Bro just gave him a head tattoo. Instead, while he's in the air and can't dodge, the creature smashes him against the wall with its tail. Daojin sits there after having crashed. This probably made him realize the strength of the boss monster. The creature pulls out its poisonous fangs and hisses at him like any bride when she's hungry. The creature tries to bite him, but luckily, he evades the attempt. Using the momentum of his evasive maneuver, he gets back in motion, with a powerful punch that connects with the creature's body, and leaves more cracks against its hard shell. From this second attack, one thing has become clear to him. The boss monster has an unusually tough exterior, making it a greater challenge than the rest of the vipers he's gotten rid of. The shell is so powerful at his current level that he cannot penetrate it with a single blow. This reverses the situation on him, making him wonder if he should aim for a different battle strategy with his original strength. The sword god would mop the living ground with this beast, but then he suddenly realizes something. It's the sword of the warrior who lost his life fighting the boss. And now you're going to find out why he's called the sword god and not the fist god. Even though the weapon is heavily worn from combat, he holds on to it, convinced that a sword is only as competent as its wielder. With that knowledge in mind and the sword armed in his hand, he walks towards the monstrous snake. The creature propels itself to strike him again, bursting forth at incredible speeds. Daojin responds by rising into the air, proudly declaring that the creature should feel honored that he's going all out to kill the beast with a sword. Even though the sword's condition is crap, this guy literally unleashes so many lightning-fast slashes in the span of a few strikes that it leaves the snake's body disemboweled. The serious fight turns into a humorous conclusion, with the snake dying in the background as our guy's sword is reduced to dust. A goods thing. He finished off the creature while it was still holding on with the dead boss monster. Du-hun thinks of a clever idea that I don't really see many other protagonists implementing. He removes one of the creature's fangs, believing it could be used as good material for a short sword with a bit of refinement, considering this a reward for his journey. He exits the gate. When he steps out of the gate, it's already a starry night outside. He spent more time at the B-rank gate than he thought, and with how things turned out in the end, it only pushed him to pursue and restore his strength back to full health. Also, he's a little glad that his old friends won't see this weak version of him, because it would be embarrassing. Back from home, he goes to appraise and sell the magic stones he has before him. There's actually another hero who has come to present his large stash of magic stones. The shoddy receptionist treats him like crap and points out that the commission rate is still 40%. Even the innocent can sense the bullshit behind such a high rate. He even calls it out, expressing his concerns and calling himself a normal guy. The receptionist, just as he did with Du-hun, clarifies that their rate is actually the lowest among all appraisal trades. The gate center is 5%, but that's without taxes. From the sleazy appraiser's perspective, this is a great deal for heroes that makes them good money. The money is handed to the hero, who doesn't really complain much, except worriedly asking about the guy's bruised face. The funny thing is, this guy keeps repeating the same script, even after getting his face broken. Bro plays dumb, claiming a psycho first wiped out his guards, and then left him with this treatment. The hero thinks it's actually the receptionist's fault for keeping low-ranking guards at sea level. After all, rank isn't the only thing that matters in their world. Skill also plays a significant role. In reality, rank is a false representation of one's abilities, and it's only updated to keep the system intact. The hero does well to mention that people of the same rank have a wide variety of skills and abilities, so they cannot all be treated equally. There's also a difference between a guard who spends all day watching the shop and a hero who makes a living hunting beasts, even though this guy is giving him solid advice. The jaded receptionist just wants him to stop blabbering and leave, which he does, offering to help the little guy if he ever needs anything. As he leaves, our guy passes by the man. As cold as ever upon seeing him, instantly, the receptionist shivers and shits himself. He points at Du-hun, shouting that this is the psycho who messed him up, looking back at both of them. The hero is truly impressed. He notices our guy's slender physique for his height. Still, the fact that he messed with the guards here makes the man prepare for a fight, wondering if he's the troublemaker. What I like about this guy is that he doesn't take offense for petty reasons. He actually believes that Du-hun is misusing his powers as a hero by intimidating civilians in his normal life. Of course, he couldn't be further from the truth, as he only knows part of the story. but it's still quite interesting to see realistic characters. The receptionist enjoys the scene, knowing that this guy is actually a 7-year veteran hero. If anything happens to him here, the guy has a lot of connections he can abuse by giving them Do-hun's name, not really caring who he is. Our guy turns around and simply tells the bomber to go to hell. This only makes the guy feel provoked, because suddenly now it really looks like he's being an asshole. Do-hun asks if the guy is looking to take revenge on him. Upon hearing those words, the veteran hero feels provoked. However, being the responsible hero he is, and from the experience he has, he knows it's reckless to fight battles against other heroes, as it almost always results in deaths. In fact, the death rate is even higher than in a fight against monsters. Remembering that fact, Bro literally calms down and turns his back, leaving the receptionist speechless. Do-hun turns to the sleazy appraiser and asks him if he has any problems he wants to sort out. Before the guy could respond, he throws him a bag full of magic stones to appraise and turn into money. These precious and shining babies are all high-grade magic stones, which really raises the question of who this guy actually is. From the receptionist's perspective, calculating the total amount turns out to be 150 million won. It seems like a lot at first glance, but for Do-hun, it's too little for a day's hunt. He asks for the money in cash, but the receptionist reminds him of the commission rate they have to calculate beforehand, which obviously elicits a scared look from our guy. Remembering that the rate is only 1% in his small business, he calms down and tells the guy to hand over the rest of the amount. Now, inside the mind of the hilarious appraiser, he feels like beating the guy up for having such audacity. But only in his imagination can he do it. Speaking of which, the receptionist expresses that there needs to be approval from senior management for such an enormous amount. Without losing another breath, Do-hun demands that he get approval this very instant, so the guy quickly calls his boss, whispering the details of his situation to him. But before he can close the deal, Do-hun grabs the phone and tells the boss directly to hurry up with the payment. The boss is fine with him doing that, but he just wants him to give the phone back to the employee, gladly returning it. Do-hun accidentally, or I should say intentionally, smashes the phone against the wall. The employee shivers at seeing his device shattered, while Do-hun instructs him to quickly prepare the money now that things are clarified, and that's how the receptionist prepares numerous bags full of money for the transaction. In the end, the guy is left despondent from having been forced in such a way. Maybe you guys feel sorry for him. But remember, he's still scamming almost half of what ordinary heroes earn after risking their lives. He's trash. 10 minutes passed, and the boss quickly found himself at his shop, enraged that his employee wasn't picking up the phone. The funniest thing is that the receptionist throws in the towel and tenders his immediate resignation. The boss then sees the guy's phone smashed against the wall, giving him a good idea of what happened. Seeing this, he pulls out his phone to call Yu-yeon, asking her to come immediately. Yu-yeon seems to be a famous young woman with beautiful purple-pink hair. She's so recognizable in public that people celebrate her name as Haeun Yu-yeon and treat her like a celebrity. Not to mention, she looks great in that outfit. She arrives at the store and surprises the receptionist with her presence, giving him a pleasant greeting with a smile. There's a big reason why everyone is making a big fuss about her. She is the country's 4th S-rank hero. Nothing short of amazing. People have sprouted rumors that she's the boss's niece, but then it makes him question what she's doing here. Confirming the claims, Yu-jun expresses that she was called here on behalf of her uncle's request to take care of a reckless hero. Intrigued by the situation, the stylist sits down ready to hear what happens. In the next scene, we can find our guy, with his body absolutely ripped, meditating in the sun. It's true that he's been hunting for a whole day, and yet the rewards he's gotten from it haven't been surprising at all. And the way things are going, he's worried about the future. First of all, he needs to reach a level where he can clear S-rank gates by himself. That means he has to train to restore his original strength. Did you hear that? Guys, it's time to train. Do-hun's biggest challenge in this current life is that unlike the previous world, its mana density is thin, so even if he does his best to gather mana at his current pace, it will take him at least 3 years to get close to his original strength, even more if things get tough. On the bright side, he could aim for better battle gear, but the problem is that even the most terrible equipment costs hundreds of millions. That would be a waste of money. Suddenly, a shiver runs down his spine as he senses the presence of someone dangerous. Fixing his gaze on Jun Young, he grabs the girl at full speed and demands that everyone go inside quickly, return inside, close the room, while his grandmother anxiously asks, "What's happening?" The entire structure shakes with a strong tremor, making his grandmother shiver. And wonder in terror if they're having an earthquake. The little union is in a state of panic. But the truth is something only our guy knows. This isn't just an earthquake, it's something else. Do-hun feels the sharp energy. And violent outside. A rift has just opened in their world, and it turns out it manifested right above his house. He rushes to fix the problem and tells his loved ones to stay inside, since the situation outside is dangerous for them. At full speed, he enters the rift's entrance, where the last thing he hears are his grandmother's cries, and his sister shouting his name. The scene changes to the Seoul Hero Association, where its members immediately go on high alert at the sudden appearance of a rift high above the Mapo region. It appeared 63 days after the last appearance. Realizing that the White Lion Guild is the closest to Mapo, the manager wants his staff to contact the guild immediately and alert nearby heroes to join forces to control the situation. Upon closer inspection of the rift's exact location, he discovers that it appeared above a residential house. This is a delicate situation, even for them, because if, by chance, a civilian enters the rift, their death is practically guaranteed, not to mention that the rift won't allow anyone else to enter afterward. And if the person inside dies, it will send a wave of monsters crashing out within 10 days, causing chaos and destruction to the people living in the region. The monster wave would be so uncontrollable that Seoul's safety would be totally compromised. The director is curious about the person who interacted with and entered the rift. It turns out they know Seo Do-hun acted, as he is the resident of the house. According to his grandmother, he entered the rift to protect his family. From this information, they have the impression that he is not a hero, and that complicates things, because the chances of an ordinary civilian returning from the rift are almost impossible. This makes all the staff feel despair and helplessness about the situation, since they can't do anything. In the next scene, we find Do-hun's annoyed stepmother. The annoying stepmother, upon hearing the news of his new awakening, she can't believe her ears. Her assistant informs her that, although he hasn't officially registered with the Hero Association, they have come to verify that he is indeed now an awakened individual since his last experience at the gate. This frustrates her because Kang Cheol-wo was supposed to finish the job, and instead he only made her target even stronger. Going crazy, she slams her fist on the table, wondering why the hell they couldn't kill the guy themselves. The fact that they also took money for executing a failed job is also a reason for her to get angry. Roaring at director Lei, she declares her frustrations with Kang Cheol by sending him a message. If he doesn't kill Do-hun personally, he will owe her 10 times the amount in return. But to her surprise, her assistant surprisingly reveals that they may no longer need to contact the guy, sharing the discovery of the new rift right above Do-hun's house. Having confirmed that he entered the rift, it's clear he won't come out alive. Honey-ho is happy with the news. And at the hint that he won't come out alive, she calms down, appearing normal for once, and tells the assistant to assess the situation until they have more news. As for our guy, he has just arrived in the rift's domain. It's a forest, in fact. It's the same forest where he once used to enjoy his youth while resting. Padazua Forest is exactly the same in its reconstruction, down to the last detail as he remembers it. Even the rich mana within it carries the same weight. Following the path, he smiles at his reunion with the Almighty World Tree. This tree exudes mana in its purest form, the most divine structure and the core of the world's stability. So much so that when the old world fell, it began when this tree was incinerated to its foundations, forever altering the flow of mana, however, in this rift dimension. The tree is fine and just as he remembers it, although he doesn't know the cause. One thing is for sure. He has the opportunity to recover the mana he lost by absorbing it from the tree, meditating under the excellent flow of mana. Our guy is getting his strength clearer and clearer. He spent over 3 days sitting exactly like that, forgetting to eat or drink or attend to his bodily needs. 10 whole days passed, and all he could focus on was harmonizing his breathing at the end of the 10th night. Troubles came looking for him and interrupted his meditation. These alien creatures are called Volcana, and they have come to burn the tree as they did in the past, only this time. Our boy is there to prevent tragedy from happening again. The creatures lash out at him, while Dajin laments not being able to have a water element sword to to take them all down easily. The fiery monsters roar to make their way towards him, but our guy recharges with so much mana that he no longer cares for a weapon. He is the weapon, and those hands are rated for all. Extending his hand towards the monsters, he exerts so much authority with just his mana that he knocks one of them down. The second creature is stunned by his ability. Let's break down what just happened. What he did there is called mana release, and not exactly telekinesis. It's a blaster-type attack that uses raw mana as a detonating blow. It's been a while since he used this ability in such a way, considering he was low on reserves all this time. Anyway, the volcano creatures are not done retaliating yet. They unleash charged bursts from their mouths in return. These pulsating laser beams quickly head towards our guy, who seems calmer than ever. Only his mana is enough to protect him from any harm, taking a step towards the creatures as he ignites with a burst of mana. He comments that he has finally protected the world tree, and now he is ready to play for a while and enjoy the fruits of his training. The ugly bastards attempt another energy blast attack, but our guy quickly catches two of them and forces them to shut their mouths. In this way, their own ability charges and explodes inside their mouth, leaving behind a headless flame corpse. The creature's corpses wither, dropping 2 valuable magic stones for his use, but only a couple of them have dropped. Dojin is enjoying his life, excited to unlock something called the Eternal Ember after defeating these guys, cheerfully making his way through the monsters and hitting them all with a smile. He's finally happy to steal a good haul of mana stones from them. The one-sided slaughter continues until he finishes them all off. Du-hun has hit the jackpot with the amount of stones they are dropping. Among them, he also discovers a small coin or a seed that shines gold. This is called the Eternal Ember as he picks it up in his hand. With this, he has regained control of more of his power as he crushes the token and unleashes his flames. The way he plays with the ember reminds me of his cradle from Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, in any normal case, the ideal strategy here would be to continue gathering mana from the world tree. However, the current state of his body has reached its physical limit for mana absorption. The second way to do it is actually by absorbing the mana, completely altering the state of his mana and transforming it into fire mana. And he does exactly that as his body produces a torrent of flame energy. Now, unfortunately, in his previous life, he felt no need to do this and didn't care about the Eternal Ember at all. However, now it's necessary for him to completely absorb the embers, and it takes about 10 whole minutes just to get one done. Luckily, he has a lot of them collected, so his goal is to absorb as many as he can. The appearance of the rift has piqued public interest. All the reporters are gathered around our guy's house, while the agents and association staff protect the place. Ban Xianhu is pissed off by some guy's arrogance in entering the rift prematurely. I have to point out that he looks like a Han who ripoff from Solo Leveling, but with a cleaner haircut. I guess we also have our protagonist, but with blue hair. This guy's name is Kim Ha-young-woo, and he sympathizes with Du-hung's actions to save his sister. But Xian Ji-woo doesn't buy that explanation at all, accusing our guy of acting like a greedy person who wasn't prepared for the consequences. It would have been fine if he had been evicted in the normal way, but if he dies in the rift, the place will become a detonation field for monsters to pour out. And that's really the point. Hae-young-gu asks for Hilma's opinion, and apparently Hilma has told them to simply do things according to protocols. Hae-young-gu questions the recent appearance of rifts worldwide in various countries like the US, China, Switzerland, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. That's one of the reasons why Hilma is having difficulty managing so many rifts at once. This type of phenomenon doesn't happen every day, and yet some of the nations were able to contain the threat with ease. But for South Korea, they're here pissed off as hell because their situation could very well turn into a disaster because of one man. Xian-hu is so pissed off that he wants to beat up the guy who entered and is begging for the rift to kick him out. Speaking of the gargantuan Purple Gate, 28 days have passed since its first appearance. The same goes for the number of days Du-hun has spent inside. Now the Hero Association is scared and has already warned of the threat as a level 1 wave. Du-hun's identity hasn't been revealed to the world yet for privacy reasons, but for now they call him Ordinary Person S. While the rest of the world has no idea of Du-hun's identity, the head of the money-lending organization quickly realizes and connects the dots. Even his assistant confirms the report to verify the information of his involvement. Kim Ma-young-woo is President Wang's right-hand man. Chansob Chengsab is curious and wants to know Du-hun's chances of survival to come out in one piece. Yes, I said the thing as a ritual of this channel. The One Piece is real. Changing the subject, the assistant is quite sure that a normal person has approximately less than a 1% chance of survival. But the mere mention of Du-hun being treated as an ordinary person carves a funny smile onto Chang Sihu's face. That same ordinary person put his men in the hospital and gave them bandages for weeks. From the world's perspective, they are greatly underestimating the abilities of the only civilian who ventured into the rift. Now, Chang Sa is also interested in knowing the chances of someone surviving as an awakened individual. For this, his assistant believes that it will ultimately depend on the hero's level, and it's difficult to make a judgment without precise information. Even Chang Sao admits that fighting ability is different from pure survival ability, and that introduces a completely different level of complications when you're inside a rift of all things. Anyway, one thing is for sure, the bastard hasn't changed his ways. Changsa wants to protect Du-hun's family, but not for noble reasons. No, this bastard intends to sell the organs of his loved ones in case he doesn't make it back. And even if he does, he's going to carry the burden of the debt for taking care of this guy, who is the embodiment of a leech. The scene shifts to the mesmerizing world tree. Here, our guy is going full throttle in his training arc as his body is now flourishing with flame mana. He doesn't even know how much time has passed, but he's been grinding, absorbing hundreds of fire stones. With this, he has acquired so much fire mana that he can use and manipulate it as he sees fit. Not to mention his flame resistance has increased as a side effect. Comparing his past self to his current self based only on the fire attribute, he believes he has surpassed his past self to a small capacity. Mastering this ability, he embraces the world tree, sharing a tender moment with it. It has always served him in his time of need, even in the past and even now. That's why Du-hun is grateful for everything it has done for him. As for his mana stones, he has made a small bag using vines to store them all. With the stones collected and stored, Du-hun understands that he will probably never see the angelic tree again, but still, he hopes their paths cross if the divine tree ever finds itself in danger. Because when that happens, he will be ready to protect it with his life. Now, I don't know about you, but I really, and I mean really, enjoyed this tender scene. That night, Daojin finally steps out into the outer world, emerging from the rift as a whole. Luckily, he doesn't perceive anyone around him, suspecting that most people probably thought he had already died inside, and that a monster wave would emerge at any moment. However, he detects the presence of someone strong nearby, deciding to pursue them. He rushes to find the source. Shortly after, he stumbles upon the two agents, one pissed off and the other relaxed. Both Ha Young-yu and Si Hung-hyu from last time. He now understands that these guys probably represent the association just by their attire, which means that if he gets caught, things will get really problematic. To combat that problem, he spins a fireball and launches it into the air with a powerful thrust. That attack ends up finding its way through the building, resulting in a loud explosion. After the detonation, both Hai Hung-woo and Seong-woo went on red alert the moment they heard the crashing sound. Realizing that it's actually fire, they decide to pursue it. There they discover a lot of horrified people. Seon-ju wonders what the hell is happening in the chaos. Meanwhile, our guy is impressed with his flame power. So far, his precision is good, so it will do wonders for him. In the memory of his old friend named Tusk, he wonders if the wizard would be impressed by his current level of flames. After all, Tusk was known for being the strongest fire mage on the continent, and they shared a good bond. Suddenly, Hae-young-goo's sharp senses alert him to look for the rift. It seems to be acting up, and right before their eyes, it disappears into the fog. The two agents rush to the spot to see what's happening. When they arrive, they can't believe that the rift's connection to their world has vanished. As for our guy, he heads to his next destination without a hitch. The next morning, news breaks about the status of the rift that lasted a month in Mopo. It is announced that the rift disappeared 29 days after Co. Du-jun entered the area, proving that the Hero Association's concerns about the monster wave were wrong. They have no idea about the rift's unexpected disappearance and are currently investigating what happened. They also have problems with the cause of the fire that occurred at the time of the rift's disappearance in a junkyard. Now this leads most people to believe that Co. Du-jun is dead and that this is just the consequence of his own actions. Unbeknownst to them, our guy is hiding in plain sight, observing the mixed opinions of people as some sympathize with the boy who lost his life. Unfortunately, the disappearance of the rift is heartbreaking news for our hero. He is despondent about not being able to interact with the world tree anymore. Even though he cannot protect the world tree, there is still something else he could protect in his life. Which brings us back to the HCS capital. Inside, the idiots are busy celebrating Du-hun's death, believing they can then easily get rid of the old granny. And his sister. Chang Sob is the type of person who squeezes people dry. After all, a bastard is talking about how they should let the little sister grow up so they can use her in other ways. While they chat, not guarding their own words, a familiar voice greets him and asks for their boss. The scene cuts right there, and we see Chang Sib humming and going about his day. Satisfied that Du-hun is finally out of the way and dead for good, his assistant goes over his appointments for today. Apparently, he's mostly free, except for a lunch with another CEO. Hearing that he's happy because tonight he can enjoy a party to his liking at a club under Madame Kang. It's basically pointless chatter until he enters the building, and as he walks up the stairs, he finds his men being tossed around like toys. Their blood splatters around, and the cause of it all is someone he assumed dead. Our guy throws him to the ground and tells the disgusting Chang Sib to crawl towards him like a dog. That chilling command of his makes the company president tremble. Our guy acts like the real leader of the group and sits in his chair. Then he repeats his order to the ignorant Chan Seo, who is still processing the weight of the shameless command. Without wasting time, he crawls like a dog. Ruthless as ever, Du-hun then orders him to bark, as he deserves to be treated like an animal. Upon uttering the command loud and clear, the humiliated Chan Si Obgam takes a second to successfully bark. But our guy is not satisfied at all. Our guy personally makes sure to turn him into an animal. Forcing him to bark repeatedly for all to hear, the president is reduced to being less than human. Just like the people he treats, Do-hun points out that scumbags like him only act obedient in appearance. But they end up stabbing you in the back as soon as they find an opportunity, stating his disgusting name. He chillingly tells the man that his life is full of experiences dealing with second-rate humans like him, pleading and begging for mercy. Chang Sob is ready to serve as a loyal dog if necessary, but Du-hun has heard enough and delivers a hard slap to his face. That force alone is enough to leave the guy breathless and expel a gush of blood. His assistant watches the scene until he is called by name. Du-hun addresses him as the new head of the company and advises him to stop working under a scumbag like him, knowing that these types are so willing to stab people in the back. He orders the assistant to kill Chanseok with full permission. Of course, it's too heavy a task for a competent servant like him. He apologizes and objects, stating that his leader has many connections. So things will get very bad if he is the one appointed boss instead of Chanseok. On his behalf, the assistant begs Du-hun to spare his life once more. However, Du-hun doesn't want to play with mere words in front of them. He suggests wrapping Chan Sub's body in a barrel and eliminating all evidence by pushing him into the endless ocean. After all, it's one of the things these guys know how to do. Seeing that the boss's servants are unwilling to please them, our guy takes a different approach with them. Du-hun threatens the entire group with throwing everyone to the gate as monster food if they don't comply with this order. Yes, the mere mention of that reduces Cheng to a pathetic mess. He can't take it anymore and keeps begging for his life, promising he will never betray, and that he will always serve under Du-hun's orders. Now this puts the hero in a bit of contemplation, although he could kill Chan Sob right here and get rid of all his problems. Something in him has changed in this life, admitting it himself. Du-hun has become softer compared to his ruthless past self, so this time, he accepts offering him a hand. Just know that Chan Sob is about to get religious after this, begging God not to make Du-hun nervous again. He continues to shake the hero's hand, promising to serve him unconditionally from now on. But wait, there's something strange. Why is his hand enveloped in burning flames? Yes, even though Du-hun has softened, he is still ruthless, looking the dead man in the eyes. He reminds him it's his last chance. Du-hun then proceeds to rip off his hand cleanly, reducing it to a charred pulp. At the end of the meeting, he leaves, ignoring the president's agonized screams. But he leaves them one last warning: if even one of them ever gets in his family's way again, Du-hun will personally take care of their demise. As for their new job, they are held responsible forever for protecting his family for the rest of their lives. That's how traitors are treated. A Officially speaking, the man known as Seo Du-jun was just a blip in existence that vanished along with the rift. In reality, he's having dinner at Donald's, the Government Hero Association, and all sorts of media quickly moved on from him as if he were yesterday's news. All of them treated the civilian who entered the rift as a dead man. Even if he came out and told the world he was alive, no one would believe him. Furthermore, surfacing after a solo mission would only bring him headaches and trouble. That submissive dog Juan Chanso is currently helping him find a new home, and suitable so he can afford to move quietly for the time being. Du-jun finally got the chance to feed his sister delicious fast food. He also informed her of his plan to move to a better neighborhood, and she couldn't be happier. Now she can go to daycare like children her age and enter elementary school the following year. When the topic of school came up, little Yoonjan's mood worsened. Du-hun was alarmed. He's used to killing abominable beasts, but coddling a child isn't in his arsenal. He was dumbfounded when his sister confessed how other children teased her for being an orphan. Hearing his adorable sister's plight broke Big Brother Du-hun's heart. If she doesn't want to associate with bad kids, she doesn't have to. Those little bastards will get what's coming to them eventually. Discovering that she wouldn't have to go to daycare to be bullied anymore, Jun Yong was excited. Internally, Du-hun is devising a plan to send his little sister to a prestigious private school where no one would dare look down on her. That night, Seo Du-hun discovered that Kim Yoon-hayu had hidden his grandmother and sister in a random motel while he was trapped inside the rift. The glass bastard almost broke his back trying to apologize, saying that the motel is under his company's management, making it safer than any other place. Du-hun has no energy to deal with the calloused guy tonight, so he simply enters the room and sees his grandmother once more. Little Junyang pounced on him with a bear hug, and Grandma takes his hand with tears welling in her eyes. She's happy to see her grandson back alive. At first, the seasoned warrior was stunned, but once he felt the warmth coming from his family, he accepted the love they had for him with a smile. Little Yoonjan has taken a liking to McDonald's, so today they've been dining a lot at that absolutely real place. And she's been asking questions about Beck Bro's job as a hero. When asked if she liked having a hero brother, Jun Yang replied indifferently that she didn't. While it's great that heroes are strong and cool, they are also constantly in danger when fighting terrifying monsters. Sometimes they even die, and little Un Yang just wants her brother to live with Grandma and with her. For a very long time, Du-hun had been so used to senseless bloodshed. Having someone worry about his well-being is a new feeling for him. In the harsh world of the past, he was the last human survivor. He fought against monsters and creatures beyond his wildest dreams. In the process, he lost many things. Now that he has a second chance in a different world, something incredibly valuable has appeared by his side. Feelings he had long forgotten are resurfacing. In this world, perhaps he can live happily. Perhaps he can live a peaceful life with joy and love while feeling confused and warm inside. The Korean Hero Association was in ruins. Natty Wang, founder of the Korean Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation, has been stressed by the recent rift incident or lack thereof. His best men have investigated the site, but no new information has been found. Feeling disoriented about the state of his territory is frustrating. For the founder, it's not unreasonable to believe that a spontaneously disappearing rift could reappear at any moment. His assistant tried to agree with his concerns. He thought it would have been better if a wave had occurred. At least they wouldn't have to worry about unknown variables. Director Taiwan cuts him off before he gets more angry, though he is concerned about the uncertainties. He thinks it's fortunate that no one was hurt. Natai Wang is one of the 100 most respected and strongest heroes in the world. It is widely speculated that he would easily be elected with the highest number of votes in history if he ran for president. His words and influence could easily bring down national conglomerates if he wanted to. Fortunately, his interests lie neither in the power of a nation's leader nor in the wealth of a conglomerate. All he cares about is the safety of his people. In other words, even if it takes time, he wants a more thorough investigation covering the rift's perimeter. The surrounding residents have already agreed to sell their properties to the association, so that shouldn't be a problem. As consolation, Taiwan wants to offer those people more than the market price for their homes. It's the least they could do after causing so much inconvenience. All reliable sources have reported that multiple rifts have occurred in different countries. No matter how you look at it, something must be going on. The United States and China have already entered the control phases of their disagreements among major nations. The United Kingdom faces the biggest problem, while reliable and veteran heroes have been sent to clear the other rifts. The UK squad was simply do trash. Speaking of them, the month-long mission to get rid of the UK rift has finally collapsed in a blatant defeat. The emergence of the UK rift wave has officially begun. The city and its people are going about their day as they normally would. Among the crowd, Seo Du-hun was blending in with the pedestrians. Today, his destination is his favorite shop in the heroic complex. When he walked through the door, the guy behind the counter greeted him instinctively, but he choked up at the sight of his face. Every hair on his body stood on end in terror at the sight of the black-haired young man. Today, his manager is at the shop, so he doesn't have to deal with this sadistic customer alone. The manager quickly closed the newspaper he was reading and looked up. His voice was controlled, but it was tinged with anger. This is the guy who has been forcing his spineless cashier to buy low-quality crystals. Du-hun cheerfully took off his backpack and threw everything on the floor. It's actually good that the manager is here. That way, the sale of his magic crystals would proceed faster. The manager expected another batch of low-quality crystals to spill onto the floor. He's not interested in such petty business. Du-hun doesn't like being rejected when all he wants is a fair trade. The manager or any other sane business owner cannot afford to accept only a 1% commission. It would be better if the young man left. Du-hun stated that refusing to do business with him would be a huge mistake the manager would regret. The manager kept shooing the young man away, not even bothering to look at the bag. This is the last warning he'll give before things fall apart. In response, Du-hun kicked the backpack down, spilling its contents onto the tiles. Being experienced crystal traders, both the cashier and the manager immediately recognized the properties of those stones. That crude bag was actually full of Hero's magic crystals, a legendary treasure that money can't buy. Du-hun has a rough idea of how much these things are worth. He knows he has top-notch stuff on his hands. You see, the Hero's magic crystal was used by an infamous Mexican drug lord, Korsman, in the manufacturing of new age drugs. One night, a laboratory accident changed. It changed the course of his life and the world's perspective on that small rock. The Hero's magic crystal caused Quartzman to awaken as a powerful hero. Since then, the crystal has become an invaluable item for hero awakening and mana enhancement. Such an incredibly rare energy source can be classified as an ultra-high-end product. As a power move, Du-hun ordered the idiots to pick up their things and left. Mr. Manager quickly changed his dismissive and arrogant tone to a welcoming one. He even escorted the young man to his VIP seats and offered him some drinks while his cashier polished the crystals. Du-hun liked to reverse the situation in his head. 1 second they were kicking him out. The next he was sipping some iced drink. His initial request was the full price with a 0.5% commission. As soon as the manager showed reluctance, he threatened to cancel the deal. In previous dealings, Du-hun accepted 1%, and now he further lowers that already abysmal percentage. Frankly, he does it out of annoyance. In response, the manager bowed his head and tried to give the most heartfelt apology he could muster. Well, Du-hun is tired of hearing empty apologies. They either accept his fee or he'll take his business elsewhere. It's that simple. At the counter, the cashier curses Du-hun for being so rude. Seeing that his act wouldn't convince the guy to give him a larger cut, the manager locks himself in and gives a long speech about markets and prices of magic crystals. However, Du-hun doesn't have time to listen to such long-winded talks. He finished his drink and stood up from his seat, causing the manager to panic, feeling the deal of his life slipping through his fingers. The manager offered him a 9% commission. It didn't work, so he proposed 8%. This continued from 8 to 7, 6, and 5. At this range, his shop won't make any profit. While the manager is in the pits of despair, Seo Du-hun swoops in and agrees to settle for 1% out of respect for their previous dealings. Inside, the manager wanted to scream and curse the brazen extortionist. He can't bear to part with the product. The next words out of Du-hun's mouth almost made the manager piss his pants with excitement. Aside from the one he brought today, he has about 7 more bags of those invaluable crystals. That being said, the contract was quickly drawn up and signed. After a few minutes of officiating, the 67 billion yuan agreement entered CEO Do-hun's bank account. That's about $48 million. At this rate, his 10 billion yuan house doesn't seem so far off. The problem is that getting more high-grade magic crystals through normal gates is a time sink. If he could find a way to freely travel through rift zones, he could easily farm treasures like crazy. As he looked at his phone screen, an administrative message was sent nationwide. The wave outbreak in the southern UK region had finally been announced to the general public. Meanwhile, everyone is prohibited from traveling to the UK. After reading about a real-world problem, Do-hun lost interest in messing with the store manager. In the past, no matter the country or association involved, he himself would have intervened to seal the rift. But he's not that guy anymore. He has more fulfilling matters to attend to. Tonight, dinner is on Do-hun, and they are getting the expensive meat. Little Eun-yang's mouth watered at the sight of the pork and beef marbling on the grill. Expensive meat and succulent side dishes kept coming to the table. She was concerned they were spending too much given the menu price. Grandma paused and asked her grandson if he was okay with it. 250,000. One per 100 grams is quite expensive. Do-hun dismissed her concerns immediately. After making a killing with his crystal harvest, they could eat as much as they wanted, and it wouldn't even make a dent in his bank account. Yoon-young's first bite made her fall in love. With the taste of wild luxury meat, Do-hun continued to add more and more to the grill, while Grandma looked apprehensively at the inferno. There's another package of fresh ribs, premium ribeye, strip loin, and flank steak coming to the table soon. At this point, the scale is simply ridiculous. How can 2.5 people finish so much food? Well, Grandma is underestimating a protagonist's appetite to snap her out of her worries. Little Hun-yang convinced Grandma to give the expensive stuff a try. Unable to refuse her sweet child's offer, Grandma yielded. One bite of that expensive meat was all it took for all her worries to dissipate into thin air. Afterward, the happy family enjoyed their extravagant dinner, filled with smiles and laughter. Unbeknownst to Do-hun, a striking young woman had just entered the restaurant. The necks of the other diners almost snapped as she passed by. The woman made her way towards Seo Do-hu and decisively caught his attention. She just wanted to talk to him for a moment, nothing more and nothing less. Before she could explain her motives, Do-hun cut her off for interrupting his family's dinner. If she wants to tell him something, she should come back when the damn food is finished. Hae-hun Yu-yeon pulled out her name card, expecting the young man to change his tone upon hearing her name. To her dismay, Do-hun continued grilling and eating meat, completely ignoring her presence. And so, the renowned S-rank hunter swallowed her pride and patiently sat in the restaurant's waiting area, with a star like her sitting in the vicinity of normal people. Naturally, she became the center of attention. Men and women couldn't stop stealing glances at the woman who stood at the pinnacle of heroism. Not only is she ranked 4th nationally among S-class heroes, but most people would also eat and place her within the top 10 most beautiful heroes in the world. All the civilians around were wondering the same thing in their minds. Who the hell is making Hae-yeon Julian wait? Ignoring the brazen whispers around her, Yoo-jian recalled the brief interaction she had a few minutes ago, as far as she knows. Seo Do-hyun entered his first gate 2 months ago, came out alive, and is now suspected of having awakened. He was believed to have died in the recent Mapo Rift incident, but here he is alive and eating with his family. Aside from all the details that don't seem to make sense, a single sharp glance from the young man had an S-ranker like Yoo-yeon on edge. A newly awakened guy cannot possibly reach that rank in less than 2 months. Right. Even oil magnate Kavmor, who spent his wealth on magic stones, took about 5 months to reach S-rank, rationalizing what she felt. Yoo-yeon calculated that Do-hun must have some kind of unknown special ability. Finally, Do-hun, Grandma, and little Yoon-yan filled their stomachs and lifted their spirits. Near the exit, Yoo-yeon approached to finally have a conversation with the mysterious young man. Before she could open her mouth to speak, another group entered the restaurant with an air of superiority. Do-hun's eyes grew sharper than usual upon seeing the man. This shady-looking bastard didn't expect to see Seo Do-hun alive and kicking. After his excursion into one of the deadly gates, the lunatic Kang Kai-wo is actually quite amused by Do-hun's cockroach-like resilience. Even Yoo-yeon seemed to recognize the troublemaker at a single glance. In the middle of the restaurant, tensions rose as silence filled the air. Du-hun chose to ignore the bastard's superficial insults and called Yu Yon. Jiao-wo was surprised to see an S-rank hero talking to the cockroach. Du-hun asked her to take care of his family for a while. All she has to do is hail a taxi so they can drive away and go home. It would be more convenient if they were far away while he collects an overdue debt from a half-breed. Fortunately, Han Yu-yon is a very reasonable young woman. She did as Du-hun asked and assured Grandma and the little girl that everything would be fine. She waved goodbye to them, but her concern was evident. Hijin stood there as the taxi drove away. As soon as they drove away from the restaurant, a loud, crisp slapping sound echoed inside the establishment. With his loved ones out of the picture, Do-hun can finally stop acting like a pussy and slap a whore. He moved so fast that Chial didn't even see the blow, only felt the stinging pain on his cheek. Embarrassed by such a humiliating attack, Chial Wo gritted his teeth and charged for revenge. One of the waiters tried to break up the fight, fearing that the awakened ones would destroy the entire restaurant if the conflict escalated. His reasonable request was met with unreasonable violence. Fortunately, she was not seriously injured. Seo Do-hyun calmly told everyone to leave and clear the room for their safety. Chial Wo is really easy to trigger. He's a muscle-brained idiot who can't even think of good trash talk. Because of that, he was punished with another blow to the face. He was completely caught off guard, feeling a knuckle make contact with his head. Ken Chial Wo is the bastard who trapped the original Seo Do-hun in a gate, leaving him for dead. Even though he wasn't personally the one to neglect him, our MC still harbors a deep resentment for this son of a bitch. And he wants to talk. Chial Wo, the goblin-looking bully, burst out laughing as he mentioned how Du-hun's evil stepmother had provoked it all. Seeing that getting information out of this idiot was much easier than he thought, Du-hun pulled out his phone and pressed the record button on the video app. He just needs a clear and concise recording of the confession, and his life will be much simpler in the future. Once again, Chial Wo felt insulted by his nonchalance. He gathered power in his fist, called Du-hun's mother a whore, and attacked with unparalleled intensity. He intends to finish the job he failed. He wants to kill Seo Du-hun once and for all. Unfortunately for the big bully, his primitive attacks are no match against Lee's expert manipulation. Du-hun received the violent punch with a gentle touch and sent the enemy's fist flying as if it had just hit an impenetrable barrier. And bounced off. Kang Chial Wo had never experienced anything like this. Normally, he would blast his way through anything with brute force to kill. Now it seems he's facing someone far beyond what his tiny pea brain can comprehend. Suddenly, he was pushed off his feet. Du-hun followed the trajectory of his body like a hunter playing with his prey. Sounds of fists breaking a skull echoed throughout the restaurant, while the waitress from before tried desperately to call the police. Before she could press the call button, a delicate hand swept the phone away with a bright smile. Ha-yoon Yu-yon assured the waitress that she would take care of everything, so there was no need to involve the authorities. The waitress was relieved to see a comforting face in the midst of her nervous breakdown. Slaps, scratches, and punches rained down all over Kang Chial Woo's body without giving him a chance to catch his breath. As far as Yu-yon knows, this scoundrel is a B-rank hero with that rank. Not many people can beat him so defenseless. Based on this beating, Du-hun could be classified as an A rank. Well, even if that's true, the fight seems too one-sided. Before things got worse, Ha-yoon Hyan carefully called out to Du-hun to stop for a moment. She's worried that Kan Chial might die if the beating drags on. Deciding to listen to her words, he dropped the goblin's inert body to the ground and wiped his hands. Seeing that there's clearly some vendetta between the two, Yu-yon asked the young man how much he knows about Kan Chial Woo. Du-hun may not know everything, but he knows enough about the bastard to take revenge. Hai-un Yu-yon warned him that this piece of dirt, Kan Chial Woo, is connected to Kan Yeonpyo, an S-rank hero. Well, Du-hun already knew that fact and saw no problem. Yu-yon had never met anyone so reckless and crazy. This guy doesn't even care about the consequences he might face at the hands of an S-rank hero. Hai-un Yu-yon elaborated that Kang Yeonpyo is very protective of his delinquent cousin. This incident at the restaurant will blindly reach that powerhouse's ears. When that happens, blood will be spilled. Du-hun mocked Yu-yong's worries. He is the last person who would be afraid of some Hatshada's rancor. More than the problems for the future, he's more annoyed by the fact that Yu Jian knows so much about his life. Now that Gabwon Gun has fallen, Du-hun's enmity has transferred to the meddling S-ranker. Face to face. The wild young man glared at her. Ha-yun Yu-jian was not a pushover by any means. She wouldn't yield to simple, intimidating eye contact. Changing the subject, she apologized for the sudden visit and brought up her agenda. Her uncle had asked her to come and talk to her. After she learned about the bag of Hero's magic crystals he sold, Yu Jung wanted to get her hands on the rest. She is willing to buy every piece he has, no matter the price. Du-hun warned her that it wouldn't be cheap. He has a lot of precious treasures stored up. After all, she assured him that an S-rank hero's goods are beyond normal people's imagination. Well, it's not like he's opposed to selling his goods. He just has one condition before making the transaction. It's no big deal. Actually, just a small favor, at least for someone as renowned as Haeun Yujian is. Elsewhere in the city, the sound of expensive alcohol bottles crashing to the floor can be heard. Do-hun's evil stepmother is falling apart upon learning new information about her supposedly dead stepson. Her people were so sure the kid died in the rift. However, now she's getting word about how the Du-hun survived like a resilient cockroach. Brez. F for the bald guy here. Having a boss like her can't be fun. You can't blame him for the misinformation. Even the Hero Association gave Du-hun up for dead. The evil stepmother doesn't want to hear excuses. She wants action instead. To make matters worse, they just received news about Kang Cheol-gu's defeat at the hands of Du-hun. At this point, it's safe to assume that Seo Du-hun already knows who is truly responsible for his attempted assassination. Upon hearing that she might be implicated, the evil stepmother swallowed in terror. She's not afraid of Du-hun. She's more worried about the hassle it will bring when her father or husband finds out about her dealings. They can cover everything, but if the media finds out, the group's stock price will plummet. So she ordered her people to intercept the media. If they mess up, Group T and Group W will blindly cut all deals. And advertisements. First of all, the police must also be on her payroll. In that regard, evil stepmothers, people have already moved to cover all bases. Knowing that they have some competence lifted some pressure off her shoulders. The bald director then whispered to her that no matter how many cover-up jobs they do, what they are doing is not a root solution to the real problem. In that regard, the bald director might have a plan that can put an end to this headache. They just have to make use of Kang Cheol-wu's cousin, the infamous Kang Yongpyo. Even someone like the stepmother here knows about the S-ranker. Kang Cheol-wu may be notorious as trash in the hero world, but everyone knows how close he is to his powerful cousin. In reality, Kang Cheol-bu is just a pawn doing all kinds of dirty work under his cousin's orders. They're both messed up in the head. If Cheol-bu is caught by the police and defamed by the media, it won't be a good look for the S-rank hero either. In fact, he has already taken steps to deal with this public relations disaster. The evil stepmother decided she wants to meet with Kang Yongpyo as soon as possible. Furthermore, that dog, Wang Changsug from HCS Capital, has shamelessly allied with the enemy. He's taking care of Do-hun's family. Now for that, the stepmother wants a prosecutor on the phone. In a minute, those who abandon their camp must pay the price in full. The next day, we follow a group of heroes entering one of the 37 rift zones in Korea. Among those rift zones, 5 zones are becoming safe gates. The rest can only be classified by heroes affiliated with hero associations with coordinated schedules. Today, Miss Haeun Yujian is leading a team herself with her S-rank ID. She has practically unlimited entries into any gate. Among the crowd of heroes equipped with luxury weapons and gear, there was a young man in a hoodie. Haeun Yujian chose a clamgel range from Jeonnunho as a temporary group for the hunt. It's very rare to be part of an S-rank hunt, so they are excited. Yujian reasoned that she simply wanted to do something fun and stretch her muscles a bit. In reality, she had to set up this whole situation just to give the young man in the back a clean entry to the gate. Seo Du-hun agreed to sell the rest of his magic crystal stash at market price to Yujian if she would let him into the restricted rift zone. He just wants to earn more money by hunting in higher-level zones. While it's true that rift zones harbor all sorts of treasures, entering such a difficult one for a certain profit without fear is simply crazy. Well, she doesn't really care. Either way, she just needs to get her hands on those hero magic crystals. After a few minutes of traversing a dark tunnel, the group finally emerged on the other side into a bright forested area. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Inhu began to pester Yuyeon about the true identity of the young man following him. Yuyeon just introduced Duhun as someone she knows, but no one believes that half-baked answer. Inhu speculated that he might be Queen Hyeon's boyfriend. Tired of all the murmuring, she told Inch a partial truth and confessed that the young man was there because she owed him a favor. It's not every day an S-rank hero owes something to someone. As the group got lost in their respective conversations, a giant shadow covered the sun from above. Everyone turned their eyes to the sky and saw the beast. Being an A-rank guild, the Clone heroes responded instantly by drawing their weapons and taking their respective positions. The first encounter was none other than the fearsome cockatrice, like the expert leader she is. Yuyeon took command and barked clear and concise orders. Jinhui and Dujong handled defense, while Sengu aims for the legs. Before she could finish assigning everyone their role, a figure blurred as he shot out towards everyone. With a single, shocking leap, he closed the aerial gap between himself and the flying beast. Seo Duhun disregarded the lengthy group plans and jumped for a one-on-one with the bird. The Clone heroes gaped. They had never seen anyone so brazen, accumulating energy in his fists. Duhun prepared for first blood. Before his charge, Guildmaster Inju is stressed by their bad luck. They are barely inside the gate, and a troublesome opponent has already shown up. Before the group could organize and get into position, Duhun had already dropped his bag to the ground, while Yuyeon took the lead. He was bursting into the air like a speeding bullet. He was an absolute speed demon. In one leap, he neutralized the bird's aerial advantage. In the skies, he took control of the field without any problems. His fiery energy was dense and scorching. The oversized chicken had neither the speed nor the reaction time to block the incoming attack. As a result, he was forced to take a punch directly to the beak, the bird on the ground, and the human in the clouds. It was quite a poetic inversion. Dohun landed in front of the group. Not a single drop of sweat fell from him. The cockatrice is on the verge of death, the mark of his fist visible on the side of its face. The Cleum Guild members gaped alongside their S-ranker. They witnessed the brutality of what happened next. Dojin lifted his leg and began stomping the bird's head into meat paste. It might seem excessive, but killing a cockatrice requires a lot of strength. With each stomp and kick, the sound of the skull breaking and blood gushing mortified the group. Now Inju is really curious as to who that guy is. In all honesty, Eugeon wasn't really sure herself. All she knows is that either Dohun is a really strong human. Well, simply calling him strong is a huge understatement. There are only a few heroes who can do what Dohun just did. Killing a cockatrice in one blow is no ordinary feat. Eugeon downplayed the achievement by mentioning her sister. That woman belongs to that elite list of outstanding heroes. Still, Injur cannot get over the fact that a hidden powerhouse is among them. She watched the entire sequence and was amazed the whole time. Yu Yun took note of the young man's monstrous power and decisiveness. Her curiosity surged. She turned to Inhu with an impromptu change of plans. For now, she wants to go to the center with Du Hun, leaving the rest of the group on the outskirts. Yu Yun carefully approached the young man, expertly carving the cockatrice's carcass for loot. Before she could speak, he preemptively stated that he wouldn't share the loot with people who hadn't contributed anything to the kill. Fortunately, Yuyeon is not one to stand on ceremony. A few pieces of magic crystals. She approached him to propose that they go a bit further into the gate's core, somewhere more challenging and suited to their current abilities. With a smile, he gladly accepted the invitation to hunt and loot more. Jun knows the layout of this gate quite well, so she will lead the way. All Du-hun has to do is follow her closely so he doesn't get lost. Without warning, she sped off at full speed, causing a sonic boom. Du-hun calmly watched her figure disappear into the horizon. After slinging his backpack over his shoulder, he adopted a running stance, storing energy in his muscles. With an instantaneous first step, he unleashed an explosion that almost blew the Kiem Guild heroes away. Yu considered that if Yu Yon is a bullet, then that man moves like light itself. Left behind by the two powerhouses, the miscellaneous heroes turned to their guild leader for their new plan. Of course, trying to follow those two ahead is completely impossible. Today they must accept that they are sidekicks and small fries. However, this is still a decent gate with plenty of monsters to hunt in the surroundings. In the outside world, normal people praise them as powerful A-rank heroes. But in front of a true S-ranker, they are not even worth mentioning. Yu Yon and that man are leagues above the entire Clone Guild's strength. Speaking of those two, their race through the forest is proceeding hastily, as they maintain blistering speeds without much effort. Yu Yon kept checking her flank for signs of Du Hun. Seeing no sign of the guy, she began to soften and think that maybe she had overdone it with the initial sprint. As she thought about slowing down, Du Hun suddenly appeared beside her, asking if they could go a little faster. Yu Yon's concentration broke and she almost tripped. She had never experienced anything like this before. Someone can actually keep up with her when it comes to running, when it comes to speed. She is among the top 2 in the nation, but that list might need to be updated given how Du Hun is making her eat dust. A few moments later, he made a stop to tease her for being slower than expected when she was clearly running to flex her speed. As the S-ranker caught her breath, Du Hun turned his eyes towards the sight on the horizon. Before them was a massive mountain range touching the sky. When asked what was hidden inside that rocky mountain range, Du Hun's expression turned solemn. That place is the lair of the boss monster of the Shrits, the Ashian. You see, this so-called Ashian is a giant 20-meter draconian wyvern-like monster. Yu Yo doesn't even want to contemplate the idea of subjugating that beast. It usually takes at least 3 combat-oriented S-rank heroes to even stand a chance against such a monster. One thing Dajin knows about the Kassidian is that it has a chance to drop the imaginary grade magic crystal, a treasure just below the highest possible grade. As such a tempting reward awaits him, he won't let it slip away. Obviously, Eujian opposes such a reckless idea. Well, Seo Dajin is fighting that draconian bastard. With or without her, Eujian watched as he fearlessly accelerated, aiming to climb the mountains to kill the beast. She felt as if she had no choice but to follow him into madness. Something grim awaits the duo inside the boss monster's lair, brimming with unfathomable confidence to take down a beast that easily troubles 3 S-rank heroes. It truly shakes Yu Jian to her core. You know what's even more shocking when she arrives at the scene. She finds the very creature, the Kassidian, dead at his feet. The fight is already over, and she has no idea what the hell happened. Our guy casually pulls his knife from the creature's corpse, leaving her speechless. Yu Jun mirrors her surprise. The creature he just killed is no ordinary monster. In that regard, she talks about a prominent hero known as Parkhill, who became famous for hunting monsters like the Karserians. Although he himself is S-rank, the first time he went to hunt Karserians, he was cautious enough to bring 30 A-rank heroes with him. Parkijal was the only known survivor of the group, who clung to the brink of death at the end of the boss fight. From that moment on, the guy decided to rematch with the same monster, only this time he was armed with 1 more S-ranker, and 100 A-rank heroes behind him. Practically a small army at that point. The fight was brutal. They focused on piercing the creature's wings and nullifying its flight. The Carcerian was then overwhelmed by a barrage of attacks from the heroes. This reminds me of the 100 men versus gorilla debate that's been happening lately. I'm betting on the men, by the way, and the same goes for the fight against the Carcerians, who end up being defeated. Despite this, only a handful of heroes remained from that battle, the rest massacred by the beast's wrath. The damage they suffered that day was so significant that the Heya Guild, the sweet love, still hasn't recovered from it 3 years after the event, and yet, this ordinary-looking guy has defeated the same Carcerian monster without much trouble. The funny thing is that, facing her constant stares, he reminds her that she won't get any of those precious gems for just standing there fighting the air. The comment may have annoyed her, but Yu Yon is more focused on the ridiculousness of the man before her eyes. If she wasn't there to witness the battle, she would never believe such a conclusion. The same terrifying Carcerian was taken down and wiped out in a single blow at the hands of 1 man. As for Du Hun, my boy has successfully harvested the impressive magic stone from the creature's body. He stares at it and tells her that he no longer cares about having an escort to guide him. From this moment on, he's fine on his own. He also refuses to take the rest of the valuables obtained from the dragon's body, such as its claws and teeth, showing little to no regard for them. He turns to reject her, clearly leaving the S-ranker stunned for life. Instead, he prefers to focus his energy on collecting monster crystals. He even goes so far as to allow her to keep all those valuables as payment. Yu Yan glances at the creature for a moment and concludes that she doesn't need anything from the beast either. It's already night, and the rest of his group is surprised that 1 guy managed to gather 3 bags full of magic stones. It's an incredible sight, even for competent A-rankers, for their guild to have obtained the same amount. It would have taken them a minimum of 20 hours, and due to the quality of the ingredients, even more than 3 days. This raises the question about the man's identity, and everyone is looking at Yu Yon, who brought him in the first place. And yet, she seems just as confused as they are. Based on Yu Yon's own words, the Rangwa Guild Master cannot understand how Du Hun was able to defeat the Ryan without any proper equipment. With this achievement alone, he stands at the pinnacle of hero ranks in Korea, unmatched in his power. They really just said, our guy is built different. The Rangkura even thinks he might be the strongest in the entire world at his level. It amazes her. Speaking of the guy, an exhausted Daojin returns with more bags on him with only 1 day of hunting. He has already harvested many things. By now, the group is starting to think that no one will believe them if they report this to the outside world. Do Hun's godlike power is the definition of madness to accept. Speaking of which, they are explicitly told not to drop a word of what happened here today to the outside world. Something they have to ultimately accept. The gorgeous S-ranker approaches our guy and talks about a lot of things. From afar, it looks like they are a couple who are flirting with each other. But that's only in the eyes of their groupmates. I guess they're trying to convince themselves that this is the start of a ship. They also think he's the only guy in the world who seems suitable for Yu Yong, especially considering his monstrous strength. The funny thing is how the Rangua Guildmaster quickly realizes that these guys are not the perfect match she imagined. Instead, it seems they're having an argument based on the looks on their faces. She can't believe there's a guy in the world with the ability to talk back to Yu Yon. Of all people. The shocking thing is, as Du Hun hands her a bag and calmly walks away without saying another word. This amazes the guild master even more. As for the condition of the backpacks and the contents inside that he collected, Yu Gion affirms his own words. It turns out Du Hun fears the possibility of becoming an overnight celebrity if the outside world learns that he killed the Carcerian. Since that's a clear matter for him, he drops the responsibility of them onto her shoulders. Hearing his decision, it leaves both of them dumbfounded. But the irony of it all is that the law of manifestation ends up coming true, and Yu Yon becomes curious to explore more about this mysterious young man. The girl is smitten. Elsewhere, we get to explore more about the famous S-ranker mentioned earlier as Hale. He's out here in beast mode with his punching bag. His assistant is amazed by his training because it looks like he's bursting with rage. As mentioned before, he is the guild master of Sweet Life. The assistant helps him calm down, reminding him that a little resilience will go a long way in these tough times. Even the guild master agrees with that idea, as he believes that those who underestimate him will eventually suffer his wrath. And before long, there will come a time when everyone will admire his strength as the most powerful guild master. His assistant continues to mention Yal's custom of hunting Carcerians, which sets him apart from others, even going so far as to say that his name will be etched into the history books as the hero who defeated the Carcerian with the smallest squad. The funny thing is that title will never be unseated from Dohin by anyone unless Stephen Hawking comes out of the grave and performs a miracle. The guild master shares his excitement with the assistant, talking non-stop about his own achievements. At the same time, his guild has suffered great losses compared to what it was 3 years ago. And yet, the only thing that makes him smile is knowing that he is the only one capable of defeating Lashian better. A fact seconded by his one-eyed servant. Speaking of high-ranking heroes, the scene changes to Kang Young-Pao's office, who is reading a report about Du Hun's night with Kiagu and how he annihilated his cousin, even though Chihagu's intentions were to trap the guy inside the gate. And trap him forever, a plot twist happened, resulting in an awakening. Furthermore, the client who hired them to eliminate Du Hun is actually CEO Honi Ho, who is basically at the top of Korea's richest people. It makes no sense for her to point out a person as her target in front of young Pyosia's eyes, until he learns that Du Hun is actually her stepson. Although the child was welcomed into their family at the age of 7, the moment Ihu's biological son came into the world, Du Hun was kicked out of the family. This fact amuses young Pio, who points out that not even being rich can save you from being cast out. Discussing payment for the hit, he learns that they are being given 3 billion won for the job, which is paltry in front of him. And then there's the fact that Chal Gu is on the verge of his own life from his battle against Du Hun, suffering numerous burns and bruises. The worst part is that he has completely lost his sight and become a cripple for life. This only increases the cruelty of Do-hun's measures to the point that even a guy like young Pio has to acknowledge his actions. And yet young Pio revels in the fact that he would have made sure to cut off his limbs in addition to breaking his skull. At first glance, they would probably think he is saner than his cousin, but now it becomes clear why he is even worse. While discussing the scene of their battle, it is mentioned that Yu Yon was also there and supposedly helped Do-hun in some way. This truly surprises him, and he probes for more information about the situation that he doesn't understand what is so special about Do-hun. Unfortunately, even his assistant knows nothing specific about the meeting between the two, since the case was quietly closed. What the heck? Young Pio grabs his assistant and roars at him to do everything possible to discover the state of their relationship, suspecting that they may have formed some kind of deal. The assistant, completely despondent by his reaction, rushes off to investigate immediately. Young Pio is left with a tantrum, smashing things everywhere, reflecting that a Jew's men will come looking for him to fulfill the job his cousin failed to do. At the same time, he is more than happy to accept the job from her. After all, she is a rich woman with Andrew Tate's level of money, so it won't be a problem for the greedy bastard. And now the scene with our guy, who is returning home after the raid. From today's experience, he's more than happy to have spent his time in a rift rather than a gate to hunt properly. It also complicates things, because he might have to form a long relationship with Yu Yon to ensure he stays secretive. Recalling their conversation, she told him directly that people will distrust her and will ask about the identity of the person who killed the Kashin. Revealing it means inviting a lot of trouble. So for now, his plan was to keep the valuables. And if he wants to become famous, she can happily reveal his existence to the world. In response, Ro threw the bag at her to keep all the good stuff. It also means he has to look for another method to go ahead and enter the rift zones, because depending on Yu Yon creates problems for him. Still, tonight's sleep will be good, as he'll be able to rest in a luxurious house that Chang Siop has prepared for him. But when he steps inside the house, he is alarmed by the many shoes just outside. This means unexpected guests have arrived. Entering the room, he sees a group of suited men and their boss having a conversation with his loved ones. The guy looks like a more depressed version of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, and he stares at Do-hun like an eagle. Yun comes running to greet her brother with happiness, while Do-hun is puzzled by the situation. Overall, Fesco Park Kyoyon makes his identity clear, pointing out the connection between Do-hun and Chan Sob. Due to his relationship with the guy Do-hun, he is placed under immediate emergency arrest for participating in the money-lending organization run by the corrupt CEO of HCS Capital. Letting the situation unfold, CEO Do-hun peacefully surrendered to this supposed emergency arrest related to Wan Chan CEO's non-shark operation. He was quickly handcuffed and detained in an interrogation room. From inside the room, he could hear a pompous voice talking on the phone outside. The prosecutor who arrested him is assuring someone that both Wang Chan Siok and CEO Do-hun are behaving like good boys. Before hanging up, the prosecutor thanks the caller for taking care of his daughter's study abroad arrangements. Then he made the mistake of uttering director Hun's name within earshot of Do-hun's superhuman hearing. Approaching his silent detainee, the prosecutor blathered about why he had become a man of law. He claimed that since he was little, he had always wanted to isolate society's trash from decent, law-abiding citizens and respectful ones, leaving a thick stack of papers on the table. The disgusting prosecutor showed off how much dirt he had on CEO Do-hun. He alleged that the charges listed in his preliminary investigation would be enough to lock up the young man for at least a decade. Furthermore, they have already gathered more than enough statements from Wang Chan, CEO, to catch everyone involved in the operation. CEO Do-jun didn't even bother to react to these barely veiled threats, since he didn't get the reaction he expected. Mr. Prosecutor resorted to cursing him, going directly to the root of the problem. Do-jun insensitively asked if that Honayu was behind this weak legal trick. The prosecutor was visibly agitated, but vehemently denied such accusations, even going so far as to say he had never heard of that name. Do-hun estimated that these shameless bastards must have already worked on Wang Changxiu's side. Do-hun silently came along to avoid trouble, but things could get much worse. At this rate, refusing to be intimidated by Do-hun's aura, the prosecutor boasted that people in his line of work are not pushovers. In response, the young man leaked a bit of killing intent to shut him up. The prosecutor almost shit his pants right there. He felt that piercing gaze on a primal level, a direct threat to his existence. Ashamed that he was scared by a handcuffed delinquent, the prosecutor wanted to man up and slap the detainee. Before he committed the last stupid act of his life, an intern interrupted, asking him to step out of the interrogation room for a moment. They just received news of a wild discrepancy in Seo Do-hun's file. The building's hero detector evaluates the young man as an ordinary person, even after checking twice. The results were still the same based on the incidents that Sao Do-hun had recently been involved in. How can that make sense? Maybe they were wrong to label the kid as an awakened one in the first place. The prosecutor got all his information from Hon Iju's T group, so the trial is supposedly reliable at this point. Do-hun is an indecipherable puzzle. How can they accuse someone considered a normal civilian of incidents involving superhumans? Internally, Do-hun mocks the prosecutor for being such an incompetent dog. If he really wanted to, he could break free from these flimsy handcuffs and tear the whole place apart. As for the consequences, he could always take Grandma and Junyun to a safer place, maybe abroad, before he could resort to the most brutal solution. Ha-yoon Ho-yeon, wearing a suit and tie, entered the interrogation room. She must have heard about this unjust arrest and came to check things out. When asked why he was detained, Do-hun frankly replied that he himself isn't entirely sure of the reason. Fortunately, Yoo-yeon advised him not to do anything reckless. She might be the only person who knows what this guy is capable of. The situation is frustrating, but using force now would only make things more complicated. Yoo-yeon didn't wake up today expecting to get involved in the legal system, but she knows for sure that Do-hun is innocent of what he's accused of. With an innocent person facing unjustified punishment for false accusations in front of her, she feels obligated to correct it. Yoo-yeon estimates that the Hero Association will soon begin a separate investigation. They will undoubtedly find out about Do-hun's fake hero license and will definitely investigate the recent Mappo Rift incident. Do-hun asked Yoo-yeon how his family was, and she realized she was being treated like a secretary. When the young man looked at her with an indecipherable intensity, Yoo-yeon relented and assured him that she would take care of his family. As she left the interrogation room, essentially becoming Do-hun's legal representative, she proclaimed that debt would not be forgotten. She didn't show it, but Hee-yeon liked that he trusted her. This time she promised she would resolve this setback as quickly as possible. And she wasn't joking at all. The method chosen by Ha-yoon Ho or Ha-yoon was not a direct legal defense proving Do-hun's innocence. Instead, she exposed Fesco Park Ki-yeon's various crimes and illegal dealings, resulting in his dismissal. Once that scum was out of the picture, a fair investigation flowed smoothly. Seo Do-hun was declared innocent in relation to the loan shark operation and other recent incidents. However, he couldn't completely avoid punishment, as expected. The investigation proved his use of an unauthorized hero license. Thanks to Hae-hun Hoojun's active defense, he got off with only probation. As they drove back to Do-hun's house, breaking news about a never-before-seen monster appearing in England and causing destruction appeared on the radio. The monster was described as a mantis-like creature, 1.5 meters tall, with compound eyes and terrifying jumping power. Based on the description, Do-hun identified the creature as a Macassian. Hae-hun Yoo-yeon almost crashed the car upon hearing him utter the name. Information on newly discovered monsters is heavily guarded by the association. She only knows what a Macassian is due to her stature as an S-rank hero. You see, monsters don't receive arbitrary names from just any bozo. Upon dying, they drop magic stones that contain not only condensed energy, but also unique information. By analyzing this coded data, it's possible to learn a lot about a monster, including its true name. On current Earth, they use science and technology for analysis. In the destroyed world, on the other hand, magic was used. In other words, Daojin is incredibly familiar with the monsters that appear in both worlds. He knows their names, and everything there is to know about them. He randomly blurted out that Macassians can be easily handled using the red flower ant fluid. The fluid is harmless to humans, but acts as an extremely potent paralyzing toxin for Macassians. Spray those bugs and they'll stop rampaging. Hae Yoon-jeon became serious for a moment. Every one of his movements and words only adds to the mysticism. Who exactly is Seo Do-hun? No matter how much she tried to pry into his true identity, Du-hun never gave an answer. His mind is elsewhere. He's devising a plan to avoid any and all future headaches. The only reasonable solution he can think of is to kill that bitch Honi-ho. Speaking of the devil, Director Hong is at her wit's end, nervously biting her nails, riddled with anxiety. She tries to devise new plans to deal with her husband's bastard son. With someone like Haeyeon Yuyeon involved, she feels even more pressured to deal with the boy. The director's assistant wasn't much help, even after exhausting their resources. They can't figure out what kind of relationship that S-rank hero has with Do-hun. If they make the wrong move and offend someone of that caliber, all the money the company has won't be able to protect their asses. And more importantly, Hon Ijo was alarmed by the prosecutor's report that Seo Do-hun registered as a normal citizen, and not as a hero on their testing machines. Based on everything they know about the boy, it's pretty clear he awakened something dangerous. Maybe he has some ability to fool the hero detector, or something like that. Hon Ijo is losing money on this crusade of hers, and the best her people can offer are speculations. Absolutely livid, she finally contacted the S-rank scoundrel, Candian Teo, putting 20 billion, no, 30 billion ones on the table to put an end to this Do-hun problem once and for all. Upon receiving the call, the rogue greedily demanded double the pay to deal with this small problem. Even his subordinates found it a bit unreasonable to demand 60 billion for a simple job. He might be an underworld rogue, but Kang Yunpyo is also a cunning bastard. He could tell that Hon Iju had no other options. She has no alternative answers left. Besides, her company generates so much income that 60 billion yuan wouldn't even be noticed if missing from the coffers. Furthermore, Haeyeon Yuyeon is now part of the equation. Given that Kang Jompyo is taking the risk of fighting another S-rank bender, the initial offer becomes a bit more reasonable. The subordinate agreed that Haeyeon Yu-jeon is a dangerous opponent. In fact, hearing his employee praise another S-ranker offended Kang Jompyo's fragile ego. He cursed the subordinate for doubting his prowess in fighting someone like Yu-jeon. He claimed he could take down that bitch in about 20 minutes. Of course, the subordinate had to reassure the boss, fearing for his life. With an unsettling smile, Yompyo changed the subject to his transaction with the Hero Association. He is also negotiating a deal before flying to the UK as one of South Korea's representatives to help with the bug problem. Unfortunately for Yompyo, the association is tightening its purse strings. Furthermore, those cunning bastards are already announcing to the public the selection process for deploying heroes. They are practically making it difficult for S-rankers to refuse to be deployed. Yompyo might be a bully, but he sees the association as a group worse than bullies. The operation will take place in 3 days. South Korea will send its best and brightest, along with Japanese heroes. At least Yompyo can meet someone named Takashi. At this moment, the weakness of the Macassians has not yet been discovered. Being the one to discover such crucial intel would send anyone's stock soaring in the eyes of the public. Speaking of Macassians, those bugs have extended their advance towards Cambridge in the UK. British heroes have been fighting relentlessly to stop the relentless invasion of the giant bugs. They have gathered a decent team of heroes, as is the UK's way. In this region, they use many blades. The valiant frontline soldiers are struggling to cope with a single giant Macassia terrorizing the public. Aston Mondes has the speed and sharpness to kill slowly moving heroes in a single shot. Getting into rhythm, the British heroes counterattacked with a coordinated offensive. The hero group had a balanced lineup, and based on their prowess, they were no slouches either. Some of them used magic to forcefully tear through the thick exoskeleton. The others followed with swift melee attacks, letting the bug's blood run through the streets. With proper coordination and ample power, they managed to take down their first Macassian. Just to make sure the bastard didn't have a phase 2 or something, they chopped off its mantis head. The British heroes finally got a W, but a single monster cost them. To completely crush their spirits, a few more Macassians appeared to prey on the fatigued heroes. That night, the best heroes the UK could offer perished in a brutal and bloody encounter. They did everything they could and put all their effort into trying to stop the inevitable. Without clear information, they were helpless against unknown enemies. The troublesome Macassians are now advancing south. Cambridge's iron defense collapsed. Now there are about 60 kilometers between the bugs and the capital, London. As the Macassians were about to make their final push to wipe London off the map, something luminous rained down from above as the fluid made contact with the bugs. They collectively cramped up and felt burning agony after a few seconds of trying to resist the effects. The Macasians fell one by one, the paralyzing agent penetrating their systems, rendering all their terrifying weapons useless against biological warfare. In the air, the source of the rain was revealed. A helicopter closely followed the Mantis army from a safe distance. On board the helicopter were the heroes from South Korea and Japan for the joint cavalry. Each of them was surprised that such a simple solution proposed by Hyun Yujeon worked. The red flower ant sap is working better than great seals could withstand. They practically became useless. Empty shells. Standing next to Yujeon was Kanjeon Pyo in his eyes. There's no way this woman miraculously guessed and hit the jackpot. Waking everyone from their reverie, Hyun Yujeon took command and ordered everyone to assault by parachute and finish the job. With newfound respect and admiration for Korea's top S-rank heroine, the cavalry swan descended towards British soil to avert a cataclysm. A few days after that joint operation, the whole world learned what happened in the UK and who the undisputed MVP was. Back in Korea, the media and fans filled the airport, and everyone was eager to catch a glimpse of the country's pride. Reporters and their teams scrambled to get an exclusive on Hyun Yujeon, the top hunter during the UK expedition. She was the one who discovered the weakness of the Macasians and led the operation to the end. She practically saved an entire nation from despair. It is said that before departing, she was knighted by the royal family for her heroism. When Hyun Yong finally stepped inside the airport, camera flashes erupted, and the cheers of the civilians. Like a true celebrity, she had long since gotten used to the spotlight. Behind her was Kang Yongkyo trying to farm aura, as if he hadn't just gotten a messed up haircut. Even though Yu Yong is a public figure, the intensity of today's welcome was still a bit overwhelming. As for Kang Jongpyo, he is credited with killing most of the Macasians on the expedition. Keep in mind that he basically killed paralyzed and defenseless bugs. His entire entourage of heroes consisted of 200 people. The brilliant performance of Korea's heroes was the reason the United Kingdom still exists today. On the news, details about the Maka's hunt were made public, including the red flower. The red flower ant sap's weakness, walking through the city. Our boy Seo Do-hun heard the news and paused for a second. He was glad that Yu Yong was able to use her intel, but when they showed Kang Yongkyo on the Jumbotron, his mood soured. That smug bastard on the screen is another loose end he needs to deal with soon. Inside a random luxury restaurant, Seo Do-hun is having coffee with the woman of the hour. Hyun Hu-yong kindly unloaded tons of gifts for little grandma Jun Yang, and even for our guy. She warned him not to check the contents. Now it would be better to open everything at home, ignoring her words. Do-hun found some nice-looking clothes in his pile of gifts. Yu-yun simply wanted to give him a token of appreciation for that invaluable advice. Thanks to Do-hun's invaluable intel, she became the sexiest hero in the world. Compared to the benefits she received, some nice clothes are practically nothing. So she promised to buy Do-hun a car or anything else whenever he wanted. Bro got a sugar mummy bonus. She already knows that Do-hun won't divulge how he found out about the weakness of the Macasians. But she still asked, as expected. That man is impossible to pry into. Changing the subject, Yu-yon asked him about his future plans. He's not one to preach world peace or anything haughty, but if he sets his sights on Hone, EU and Kan Jompyo, things will get ugly. To Yu Jeon's surprise, Do-hun's only immediate plan right now is to buy a new house. The safe house his family is currently staying in is rented. After all, while the current star hero and the former sword god reconnected, the other hero who stood out in the UK expedition was living it up. Kan Jompyo enjoyed his pool welcome party with barbecues as far as the eye could see. Surrounded by the UCE, this scoundrel cannot take his mind off one particular girl, Hyun Yujeon. He knows that the girl wasn't so formidable before. She has changed somehow. He found her hidden secret about how she discovered the weakness of those bugs. On their flight back to Korea, young Pyo also tried to annoy her and pry some information about Seo Do-hun out of her. He mentioned how Yu-yon swooped in to save the day when Do-hun got mixed up with a corrupt prosecutor. She was also present when Kang Chial-woo was pummeled. Knowing he was trying to profit from her, Yu-yon stated that Chial-woo, the foolish ass, started that brawl. Before that encounter, he tried to assassinate Du Hun and failed. Kang Qiaowu's mouth twisted into a demented smile, and he agreed. He also blamed the fool for being blinded by insignificant money. Still, Qiao Guo remains his dear cousin. He can always use their relationship as justification to get revenge on Dohun whenever he desires. For a split second, Yu Yong almost slipped and showed emotion while being scrutinized by a cunning bastard. She immediately distanced herself from the conflict and insisted that she was not in a position to interfere if anything were to happen. Kang Yampio was confused. He really thought she was closer to that Dajin guy. Ignoring him for the rest of the flight, Yu Jian put her sleeping mask back on and went back to napping. However, even after that conversation, Jian Kaio still can't shake the feeling that she wasn't being entirely truthful. Kang Young Pao, paranoid as he is, continues to maintain caution regarding Seo Dohun. Back in England, the original breakout location in Sutton was the bush. The damage the monster wave inflicted on the place was still evident. The British Hero Association deployed the little strength they had inside the rifts to at least secure the magic stones before the second wave erupted. Some of the guards outside are discussing how they could have easily stood out as D-rankers. If only they knew that the Macasians could be taken down with just a bit of red flower ant sap. If their forces had managed to block the wave earlier, they could have easily acquired huge amounts of magic stones. You see, once a rift breaks with a monster wave, it can never become a gate for the second wave. It is very likely that a different type of monster would come out. There are many records of entire countries having been annihilated in the second wave. The unknown factor is the worst part. Suddenly, the rift pulsed. The assault team just entered not long ago to collect stones from inside. Only 5 hours have passed. It's not time to retreat. Still, the ranker guards reinforced their vigilance, as desperate civilians trying to steal loose stones are a common sight near rifts. Instead of the usual sequence of people exiting the rift, everything seemed to shatter. Instead of the mining team, something or someone else came out of the rift. His humanoid face was full of scars, and the armor he wore looked otherworldly. This guy is definitely not a hero. His attire and scars don't even look realistic. Before the poor guards could contact headquarters, they lost control of their bodies and floated in the air. The man took a single step and seemed to teleport as he effortlessly lifted the guards. British Guard Number 1 tried to defend himself, using the UK's characteristic weapon, 3 knives. The flying blades reached their target, but multiple circular green lights made them vanish as if they had never existed. In a hoarse voice, the man complained that these guards were too weak. He clenched his fist and made the green lights move. As a result, the guards were painfully sliced, losing their limbs. Imagine being turned into a limbless mannequin at work. A dark miasma flowed from the man's body. Using that dark miasma, he dominated the space and grabbed one of the guard's smartphones, checked the current date, and calculated that 10 years had passed since he last set foot on Earth. And yet his mission hasn't even reached 20%. After all his effort to open dimensional rifts, it's finally time to admit his failure. He not only needs to increase the mana concentration to get back on track, but before that, this planet needs a decent cleansing. It's time to eliminate the weak. Back in South Korea, specifically in the Paju region, a young man ventures out on one of his routine farming escapades, oblivious to what is happening on the other side of the globe. With no luggage other than a backpack, Seo Dujun walked through the restricted area. Suddenly, his senses flared as he noticed abnormal vibrations in the ground. Just as he had expected, a battalion of disgusting worm monsters surfaced, eager to taste some flesh. Their bodies were covered in metallic spikes. Their mouths were lined with sharp fangs. Duhun stood in the middle of the party, completely calm and unfazed by the flashy display of power. Instead of looking up at the monsters, he directed his attention downwards, towards the holes the worms made. He measured the hole with a glance and calculated that there were about 26 worms underground within a 100-meter radius. With a twisted smile, he gathered mana in his hand, eager to test the bugs. He wondered how many worms could survive his initial attack. He sent the concentrated mana blast towards the hole, and an eerie silence fell. After a few seconds of idle waiting, the long-awaited explosions finally spread towards all the other hideouts in the area. Along with the rubble and suffocating flames, all the worms writhing downstairs were forced to come up to escape being cooked alive. Dohun is a proponent of working smarter rather than harder. With this technique, he doesn't have to get his hands dirty. While he was busy farming free stones from the disgusting worms, a meeting of grave importance was taking place in the city. Min Hongkai, the deputy director of the Korean Hero Association, and his boss, Na Tai Wung, were discussing a young man who was proving difficult to deal with. Of course, they were referring to Seo Do-hun. According to reports, the boy's strength couldn't even be measured with a standard hero meter. Other association executives, namely Vice President Park Seon-cheo, found it absurd and threatening to have such a presence freely roaming the country. They want Seo Do-hun to answer to the association. According to the intel deputy, everything strange about Seo Do-hun began with Kang Chialwoo's evil plan. After awakening in the gate raid, where he was supposed to die, Do-hun changed drastically. He later took his revenge and handled the new rift in Mappo by himself. Sure, he occasionally showed some excessive actions, but he always had a good reason for it. Ultimately, Seo Do-hun's power can be classified as an overwhelming force. Nada Ewung reflected that a wild horse is the hardest to handle. However, they have a good horse in their stable. And that's what matters. What sparked this discussion in the first place was Do-hoo's request for an official hero license. He was granted a special privilege to skip the standard procedure, since he had a sponsor. Of course, that sponsor was the country's S-rank darling, Hyun Eugene. Upon hearing his connection to the Golden Girl, the old-timers of the association were stunned, knowing they couldn't afford to offend Eugene. Given how hot her name is right now, Seo Do-hun's request for a hero license was smoothly granted. In fast-tracked, he was ranked as South Korea's 8th S-rank hero, and he had never even set foot in the association. Thanks to his new status, he can finally hunt in any rift zone he pleases at his leisure. It's not a bad thing to have him. The way he wreaked havoc in the Paju rift zone, burning dangerous worms, quickly reached the association director's ears. That intimidating old man was quite amused that the country's newest was already living up to the title. It's not every day you hear about a hero venturing alone into a second-grade rift, without any guild members or allies to support him. It's simply madness in the eyes of normal people. The vice president, who was the one who so strongly opposed Seo Do-hun, is now advocating for revealing the young man's identity to the public so that the association can begin to promote a new rising star. Fortunately, the deputy thwarted such a stupid and greedy idea. Minangi stated that they should first ask for his opinion before exposing him to the life of being a public figure. He argued that, given they are in a time of turmoil, giving the people another symbol of hope in the form of a new S-rank hero would alleviate the stress of the masses. Mr. VP. He tried by all means to sell the idea to director Nat Iwan, but the old man chose to be cautious. Before the association makes any move, he wants to meet the boy face to face. Speaking of the devil, Seo Do-hun is still on his worm-killing marathon. If he wasn't using mana explosions, he's using good old brute force. As he cuts down a poor worm, the rest of the writhing bastards loom over him. They might be a tough opponent for normal heroes, but their movements are practically telegraphed in Do-hun's mind. With his hand enhanced by the burning power of his mana, he unleashed a wide sweep that burned and decapitated a dozen worm monsters. With a single blow, he landed back on the ground, and dozens of worm corpses fell around his feet. Daojin stood atop the mountain of corpses to farm aura like Jai. His hands were still burning from the afterburn of his technique. He sighed and got rid of the remaining afterglow, as expected. The mana consumption rate from continuously hunting and killing hordes of high-level monsters is no joke. To remedy that problem, Seo Do-hun finally decided to get a proper weapon, as expected. The best place to get the much-needed equipment was the Gazan Hero Complex. Seo Do-hun chose an innocuous shop and entered. Inside, a bruised guy manned the counter, playing on his phone to stave off boredom. The welcome chime rang, and he didn't even look at who had just arrived as he asked if the customer had a reservation. Seo Do-hun ignored the slacker's question and dropped his backpack on the counter, demanding that a weapon be crafted from the materials inside. Annoyed, the slacker stated that they didn't serve people without a reservation. Do-hun had already been rejected by all the other shops in the area, claiming they were all full. This was the only shop that answered his call, but the slacker, rightfully so, refused to serve Do-hun. He was enraged at having to look away from his phone, his patience dangerously wearing thin. Do-hun grabbed the slacker by the collar, ignoring his threats and curses. He asked the punk who owned the shop. The slacker proudly stated that his father owned the business. If that's the case, he better call Dad as soon as possible. Seo Duhan came here specifically on a trusted recommendation. The slacker was released. He scoffed but cowardly, retreated to another room and called his father. An old man with a modified welding mask emerged from the workshop to see what the commotion was about. His name is Choi Chialwan, master weapons craftsman for heroes. Duhan shared that he came here on Hyun Yuyeon's recommendation. Of course, both father and son knew that name. Damn it. The whole country knows that name. Old man. Choi was just surprised that an S-rank celebrity knew his craft. Seo Duhan didn't come here for idle chatter, so he just pulled the materials from his bag. The old master gave the materials a thorough inspection and identified them as a giant black viper fang. It had been a long time since he'd seen one. Well, Seo Duhan wants a decent sword made from this material. He wants his weapon to be as long as possible. Don't we all, brothers? The master craftsman argued against the request. Stretching non-metallic materials too much would be detrimental to their durability. It would be more effective to make 2 medium swords instead. Upon hearing that weak compromise, Duhan wondered if the old man was openly admitting that he didn't have the necessary skills to craft what the client wanted. However, he doesn't want 2 swords, he just wants to fuse them into one. The only thing that matters is length. Well, how you use it matters too. Besides the absurd length, he wants the mana absorption rate to rise to the maximum level. Listening to the incessant and borderline unreasonable requests, the slacker couldn't stand by much longer. He's proud of his father, a man capable of crafting weapons with a mana absorption rate of at least grade 3. Seotajin responded by picking up one of the swords displayed in the shop window. He took a look at it and evaluated the material as grade 5. Then he grabbed the sharp end of the sword with his bare hands. Father and son remained silent and in shock as their unusual customer performed a miracle. The squeeze continued until the grade 5 material shattered from the force. The product which the shop proudly displayed was reduced to sharp dust and debris. The slacker thanked his lucky stars for not having messed with the mysterious customer. The old man watched as his creation turned to splinters. Seo Duhan warned Choi Chilwan that if he was going to craft junk with the materials, he might as well abandon the job. Now, if these hands can turn a grade 5 weapon into fine dust, imagine what he could do to his face. After finally securing a shop that met his demands, Seo Duhan set off for another dungeon. Today, his target is a green-skinned, one-eyed nature monster with its keen senses. The Cyclops shrieked upon sensing a hostile presence nearby, while other hunters go for maximum style points with their gear. Seo Duhan hunts alone, in his jeans and hoodie. Since he doesn't have a proper weapon yet, these hands will serve him for now. The Cyclops didn't let him get a free hit and tried to stomp on him from the start. When the initial attack failed, the one-eyed bastard panicked. Duhan leaped into the air, compensating for the size difference. His hand, like a blade, moved as fast as lightning as it sliced through the Cyclops' juicy flesh. The pain made the beast shriek in a higher, more annoying tone. Desperate to retaliate, it used its monstrous strength and gargantuan size to uproot an entire tree. It swung it around like crazy, desperate to fend off the hooded monster. Unfortunately for the Cyclops, those aimless tactics won't work against this man. He prepared for the impact. And 2 more deep, gnarly wounds appeared on either of its shoulders. It was a bloodbath. Normally this would be the end of the hunt if Dajin faced any other monster, but Cyclops are a special bunch. They have such powerful regenerative abilities that they could tank and scoff at mortal wounds. Dajin had already taken this very powerful ability into account before. If the enemy has insane healing, you just have to keep dealing damage, without giving the Cyclops a chance to retaliate. Duhan clawed, sliced, and tore his way through the tough flesh and grotesque entrails. To properly finish things off, he decapitated the giant monster and stuck his superhero landing. It was a clean but bloody victory over the green-skinned dummy. Seo Duhan sighed, slightly exhausted right now. Maintaining a mana sword for long periods of time is still too demanding and inefficient. He grabbed his bag and retrieved a jar. Duhan dipped that thing into one of the grotesque wounds he made on the Cyclops, as if he were collecting juice. This was the exact objective of today's expedition, to get some of that good Cyclops blood. He returned to the Hero District at sunset. As usual, the slacker was manning the counter, so he wordlessly dropped his jar of blood. He motioned to the daddy's boy to give the jar to dad. With this, the two black viper fangs could easily be melted together. After that brief explanation, he refused to elaborate further and left the shop. He had already gathered all the basic materials for his weapon, but if he wanted a higher mana absorption rate, he needed one more ingredient. There's only one place on Earth to find it. While he was planning and figuring out how to find that secret ingredient, his S-rank colleague was receiving a very important call. Hyun Yuyeon was enjoying a relaxing vacation when she took the call and heard a country mentioned, Brazil. The sun is up and the water is perfect, but Hyun Yuyeon can't fully enjoy her vacation because of that call. After their recent European mission, the Korean Association had decided to send its heroes to Brazil. That means the Brazilian government and association have given up on closing the rift zones themselves. As far as Jian Iho knows, Brazilian monsters are especially violent. But the magic stone drops are abnormally high, with a lot of money at stake. Her guild Cleo is scheduled to go as well. She urged Jujian to accept the mission and go with the friend she was with a few days ago. Inho calculates that the country's 8th ranker must be that guy they entered the dungeon with, and who is rumored to be Haeun Yu Jeon's man. Yu is fully in favor of supporting this budding romance. She found it romantic that two supremely powerful people hunted a fearsome carrion, just the two of them. After much insistence, Yu finally got Yu Jeon to accept the Brazilian mission. However, she has no idea if that guy would come. Back at the small shop in Gusen, Hero Complex, Old Man Choi looked at his own creation with astonishment. He never would have imagined that non-metallic materials could be melted and fused using Cyclops blood. If it weren't for this young man, he would never have stumbled upon such a strange technique. With this, he can make the sword as long as Dohun wants. It could reach the upper limit of about 180 centimeters. Seo Dohun wants a two-handed sword with an adjustable grip to wield it with one hand, something that weighs about 5 kilograms. Old Man Choi was surprised to see yesterday's rude boy speaking so politely. He really knows basic manners. Maybe his weapon is really that important to him. Old Man Choi warned that 5 kilos would be heavy to wield with one hand. It's not like you're going to wield it just once or twice. Dohun knows what specifications he wants, and he's not going to budge on that. Old Man Choi estimated that the manufacturing process would take at least a month, and the mana absorption rate should reach grade 7. He was not satisfied with just a grade 7 rate. That level couldn't contain all his power. As he expected, he really needed the final boost from a particular ingredient. Dohun headed to the door and instructed the old man to just finish the form for now. The mana absorption enhancement can wait until he has the rest of the materials. As an experienced craftsman, Choi had an idea what material the boy was referring to. He couldn't help but shiver. A few days later, Seo Dohun went out into the city to meet a very important woman. Hyun Yujeon kept her promise and got him a new car. Dohun greatly appreciated the gift. She assured him that this was nothing compared to how much he helped her. It's just a billion-dollar car, which is no big deal. When he thanked her with a smile, Yu Yoon became a shy girl again for a moment. As he inspected every inch of his new wheels, Yu Yoon asked about what had happened to him at the Hero Association after meeting with the bigwigs. Those grumpy old men proposed making his information public, but Dohun demanded a hefty payment if they wanted to do so. He acknowledged that President Nada Taogyuan is all about the greater good, but politics muddies everything anyway. The negotiation failed. After his external examination, Dohun got into his new car. Haeun Yu-yeon calmly jumped into the passenger seat as she buckled her seatbelt. She mentioned the association's preparations for the imminent Brazil operation. Upon hearing her say Brazil, Dohun silenced any further words. He moved closer to her and sincerely asked if she was going. Dumbfounded, she barely managed to stammer that she would go. In that case, he invited Yu-yeon to go together. The S-rank Brazilian risk is unreal. It made the nation's heroine's heart flutter as her cheeks flushed uncontrollably. Meanwhile, another woman turns red because of Seo Dohun. The rich bitch Honi Ho is in the middle of being swindled by Kang Yan Kaio for even more cash. He urges director Hun not to pinch pennies at a time like this. He already has 3 billion in advance and still wants more. This man hasn't even started his supposed job of finally killing Seo Dohun. Her patience is running out. Hon Iju seriously considered hiring someone else to do her dirty work. She thought there are many criminals who would kill for tons of money. Without asking questions, Kang Jompyo laughed at her outdated intelligence, so he gave her a free tip. He just found out that Seo Du-hun just became the nation's latest S-ranker. They are practically equals. Director Hong refused to believe that the weak-willed boy she cast out of the family had become some kind of Superman. John Pio spent a lot of his own money to secure this information. If Hong is, who doesn't want to believe it, she can wait for Seo Du-hun to climb this tower and kill the bitch himself. With desperation and fear of retaliation, Director Hong stopped Yang Kaio from leaving. She is beside herself and doesn't want to die. This crazy woman promised to pay whatever it took just to get Seo Du-hun out of the way. Kan Yang-ko smiled and replied. He changed his mind. Instead of getting more cash, he preferred to have a stronger business association with the director's conglomerate in the future. At that moment, Hon Ijo would gladly accept any form of payment. At that moment, she received a very important text message. It seems the heavens are smiling upon the damn lady. The perfect opportunity has just arisen to eliminate Seo Do-hyun. A few days later, the nation buzzed with news of another international expedition for the nation's heroes. All the S-rankers who accepted the mission are now aboard a luxurious private jet. On social media, people are excited to see the 5 S-rankers save a country on the brink of annihilation. Korean users were bursting with pride. One of the S-rankers was Hang Seung-go, who led Group P to the top on his own. He only accepts missions if there are tons of money to be made. There's also Park Hill. His guild had recently been reduced to nothing, so the cash reward for this expedition is sorely needed. Hyun Eujian, on the other hand, is the country's current national heroine. She just saved Great Britain and is now going to Brazil without resting in between. Kang Yeonpyo must be going after hearing the news about the tax exemption for each magic stone obtained on the mission. Getting a single mid to high rank stone could change a normal person's life. While the other S-rankers were praised and talked about on the internet, one figure incurred more questions than rumors. Seodajan was seen as a young rookie debuting on the international scene. Nothing out of the ordinaries. With these 5 heroes at the top of the food chain, Brazil is about to be shaken up. After a long and uneventful flight, the group finally arrived in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Brazilian Hero Association has gathered to discuss how everything will unfold. They are eager to welcome the renowned Korean expedition team. They are the fastest responders among all the countries they have requested help from. Some haven't even checked into the hotel and have gone straight to action. Still, the bigwigs are worried that the Koreans might discover something they've been trying to hide. There are no eternal secrets, so they just have to make sure everything is under strict control until the collaboration ends. Brazil's national treasure, the hero Morris, has been defeated by some unknown entity. It was a gruesome way to die. A monster didn't kill him. His black box definitely captured the form of a human killer. Nobody knows exactly what happened near the Santorum Rift. Right now, the Korean team is receiving the necessary information about the action plan. While everyone listened attentively, Hyun Yuyeon was busy sending text messages and looking for Seo Du-hun. It turns out he stayed on the plane and took a connecting flight to another destination. He's going straight to the Santorum Rift. Yuyeon couldn't help but worry. She just found out that this man is going to the most problematic rift by himself. Supposedly, the team will go through a 2-day local adaptation period and then be assigned to the rift zones. They requested to be deployed too. After the briefing, Yu Yo didn't stay long and got into a taxi. Kang Yanko followed her to ask where she was going when they weren't supposed to move yet, just to get rid of his annoying self. She told him she was going to Santorin for a while. Young Pio obviously found it suspicious. The Brazilian Association explicitly warned them of the dangers of that place. The rift zone near Santorum had become a barren wasteland. Yeon Yuyeon and the Clum Guild met with Seo Du-hun to accompany him on his supposed solo mission. Since they took the trouble to rush to this abandoned place, Yuyeon demanded to know why he was in such a hurry. Du-hun claimed that they were the ones who were late. They argued like an old married couple, exhausted by their incessant questions. Du-hun finally replied that he was going for the Blue Croco. It was a disappointing answer, displeased by how casually he spoke to her. Yu Jian insisted that she is 3 years older than him and demanded a bit more courtesy. While they continued arguing, the Clem Guild just watched. The guild leader, John Hun-Hu, had never met anyone with the guts to order Yu Jian around as they delved deeper and further into the rift zone. Some of the Clum Guild members hesitated to advance without a proper plan, but the presence of Ha-Yun Yuyon at the party assured them that they would be safe. There's no denying how skilled she is, but it seems the rookie was the one who took the lead, while the others doubted the man leading the way. Those who had been present in the dungeon a while ago trusted the rookie's leadership. Confused and a little worried, Yuyon wanted to know if Do-hyun planned to close the rift. He denied having such a lofty goal. He had only come for the materials and to exploit the area to the fullest. After a few more minutes of peaceful walking, they finally ran into the claws of the first obstacle. The Kleom Guild is full of talented S-rankers, so they skillfully played their respective roles. They had a clear hierarchy and precise aim to face unexpected enemies. Still, the blue Crocos blocking their advance were more monstrous in person than in pictures. All they could do was defend themselves, and it was becoming too dangerous. With the group stalled, Seo Du-hun finally made a move. He unsheathed his sword and ordered the rankers to get out of the way. While everyone's attention was on him, this guy didn't miss the opportunity to farm aura. Old man Choi knew he was going for the blue Croco's heart, so he temporarily lent Do-hun a prized sword. He set his sight on the target in front of him and shot forward like a cannonball. With a clean sequence, he turned the annoying blue Croco into sliced meat. He moved with such speed and decisiveness that he activated the classic anime slash effect. Do-hun was already meters away from the beasts when they fell. Those who unconditionally believed in the rookie from the start were vindicated, and those who doubted him in the lead were surprised beyond words. That guy is incredibly strong. After that first setback, the journey to the rift zone continued without major issues. The sun had set and the group had set up camp, huddled by the campfire. The Clome Guild couldn't stop talking about how Mr. Seo Du-hun had taken down a group of blue Crocos all by himself with a single strike, without even breaking a sweat. He's not yet known to the public, but that's also how he defeated the fearsome Cassidian. One thing is for sure, this man is no ordinary hero. While others gossiped, Du-hun was busy looking at his sickly-looking cooked steak. Ha-Yun Yuyon approached him and asked if he had finished organizing the blue Croco heart. Well, the coolers he brought with him are full of those things. Now Yuyen still can't think what those hearts are for. Turning her attention to his pan, she asked what kind of meat was sizzling there. It's certainly not beef. He replied that he was grilling blue crocodile meat. If she wanted, she could try it. There are a lot of provisions prepared for this expedition. However, this man is cooking what he hunted. Ignoring her disgusted expression, Du-hun bit into his grotesque food, chewed, and swallowed as if he were dining at a barbecue restaurant. Using his knife as a fork, it was a ghastly sight. Even John in Ho was puzzled. They have so much normal food in stock, but their leader is munching on cursed meat. After getting over her initial disgust, Ha-Yun Yuyon became curious. She picked up a piece and stared at it for a while. In-ho wanted to prevent her friend from doing something she might regret, but Yuyon trusts Du-hun's taste. As the piece of blue meat approached her mouth, In-hun could only watch in horror. Yuyon gently bit into the stale-looking meat. After swallowing a small bite, she was pleasantly surprised by its delicious taste. And so two people in the camp, wordlessly, enjoyed a strange meal. Curious, John Hun-Hu whispered and asked Mr. Seo Du-hun about his secret. How could a relatively unknown person charm someone like Miss Yuyon? Sure, she's inexperienced and has never had a boyfriend, but she's not the type to easily give her heart to a man. So what did Du-hun do to charm and make Korea's national treasure fall for him enough to try his meat? Hearing the mention of romance made him recall his time at the Imperial Academy. It was a long time ago, even before he turned 20. As for romance, there was Miss Maisel Grano from the Grano Earls family. There was also the youngest of the Las Julian family, Lewin de Las Julian, and of course, his last sanctuary in the destroyed world. The brave knight Veronica, he began reminiscing about the past and was brought back by the whispered shouts of injustice. As for his secret, he replied that Inju Jian is the moth to his flame. Inju had never heard something so despicable in her entire life. Without further ado, the night passed with a very playful atmosphere. Even Du-hun smiled and had fun. Back in Sao Paulo, Kang Jianpio is still living it up in a grandiose hotel suite. He's still wondering why Haeun Yuyeon was in such a hurry to move when the operation date hasn't even been assigned yet. According to his sources, she will be moving with Seo Do-hun and John in Who's guild. He turned to his assistant and asked about the range of profitable monsters in the San Aram area. As far as he knows, there shouldn't be any that would be considered lucrative. Everything related to that bastard, Seo Do-hun, is simply too unpredictable. Yeon Pyo's concerns dissipated when the hateful director Hun made his phone ring. As always, she called to ask if the job was done. Hearing how impatient she sounded, Kang Hoben Pyo hinted if something had happened on her side. She is worried that her father might have found out about Do-hun's S-rank promotion. She tells the boy to go back home. Now that the president of the T group is getting involved, Hona-ju is more restless than usual. Jang Pyo finds her suffering amusing. Still, he has finally found a suitable partner who will bring him immense profits. He will make sure she is not disappointed. He assured the bitch director that Seo Do-hun would not be able to return to Korea. Hearing him say that provided Hona-ju with some semblance of relief. Kang Jong Pyo marked a spot on his map and prepared to contact someone named Takashi. Now that Seo Do-hun had slipped away to an isolated place of his own volition, his work had become much easier. When the sun rose, the Santorin expedition team continued their journey with Do-hun at the helm. Haihun Hujun held the map as navigator and warned Do-hun about going towards the jungle due to monsters. The main one deserving concern is the lynx. Of course, Do-hun knows everything there is to know about the lynx. Instead of staying away from the thick jungle, Seo Do-hun immediately headed down the most dangerous path available. Yu-yan knows there's no stopping this guy when he sets his eyes on the prize, but she forced him to at least put on some earplugs. Fortunately, she had prepared some beforehand. Earplugs are needed when fighting a lynx. Their screams have a charming effect that can paralyze the mind. Do-hun was aware of this, but refused to take the earplugs. Hu-yun didn't give up easily trying to convince him to put on the earplugs. After all, the intelligence and warning came from the Brazilian national treasure hero. Ignoring her pleas, Seo Do-hun wordlessly and nonchalantly walked through the thick wilderness of the Santorin jungle, leaving him no other option. Haiyun Yu-yeon and the Cleon Guild were dragged into this treacherous detour. After a full day of incessant walking, they finally reached the monster's lair. Under the bright moonlight, the lynx stared at them like a predator watching its prey. It looked like a deranged, overgrown cat. As soon as the beast appeared, Inju ordered her subordinates to cover their ears. While everyone panicked, Do-hun simply stared at the cat, unmoving. He's not prey. Two predators evaluated each other. It was a contest of who had more aura. As expected, the lynx immediately opened its horrible snout and let out a deafening scream. Haeun Yu-yeon and the Clum Guild members quickly covered their ears, while Seo Do-jin stood there, ignoring the sound. Noticing his strange calm, Yu-yeon wondered why he wasn't doing the bare minimum to defend himself from the lynx. Do-jin lowered his hand and conjured a fiery ball of energy. With perfect precision, he threw the projectile at the lynx's perched in the moonlight. That caused the shrieks to cease, and recognizing him as a threat, the beast bolted at the last moment. Do-jin quickly unsheathed his sword and pursued his prey on foot. John and Ho, Eugene, and the rest regained their stride and followed him, but it was still unclear what the hell was going on. They ran through the deep forest and Do-jin's strides came to a halt. The lynx that welcomed them was nothing more than bait to lure unsuspecting victims into the pack's lair. That kitten was hit by Do-jin's attack at the entrance, so it seems angry. Suddenly, its eyes glowed with a warm, radiant light. Its gaze swept over the group of humans in front of it and quickly settled on a primary target. Urian was chosen. Her eyes met the lynx's gaze for a moment, and she fell under the monster's spell. Fortunately, Do-jin moved quickly to cover her eyes. He then calmly explained that the lynx's scream was not a death sentence to worry about. What paralyses the prey's mind are the monster's magic eyes. The solution is simple. So everyone should close their eyes for a moment and let the MC handle the heavy lifting. Do-jin advanced confidently with his sword in hand. Perhaps it was time to test his current limits. With a crescent sweep, his energy manifested as a fiery arc adorned with lumps of power, a technique that can turn the swordsman into a Super Saiyan. The Bandalan sword skills first form a miracle born from a single point. He extended the tip forward and steadily summoned a much more condensed version of his energy blasts. The pack of lynxes had never encountered anything like it before and didn't know how to respond. As a result, our guy got a free hit with his ultimate ability. The ranker members of the Clum Guild were left speechless and a little terrified. Looking like a mad god, Seo Du-hun unleashed the reserve from his tip, and the fiery climax burned everything in its path. The poor furry creatures crawling through the branches realized they were screwed a little too late. The pack took the impact of a miracle born from a single point. They were completely annihilated. Its impact nearly knocked the ladies off their feet, and not in a good way. When the glow of the spell faded, the aftermath revealed a ghastly sight. An entire section of the forest had been wiped out of existence. The land was scorched to charred remains, and the one responsible for such destruction hadn't even broken a sweat. The unfortunate beasts who tried to mess with the wrong guy were instantly charred. They so exaggerated the danger level of these things that they didn't even get a chance to show their arsenal. If Yu-jun had to summarize Seo Du-hun in one word, it would be incredible. Surprisingly, a single lynx managed to survive the explosion that basically wiped out its entire lineage. Du-hun is not one to leave loose ends, so he calmly moved forward to finish the job. In desperation, the surviving lynx frantically tried to paralyze the executioner with its signature ability. Du-hun cut off its furry little head mercilessly, interrupting it. It was a clean cut that marked the end of that night's unequal hunt. The last thing the beast saw with its blessed eye was the face of the man who wielded the sword. Dojin knelt and mercilessly gouged out the eye of the dead lynx like a true hunter. He was not willing to waste such a precious part. After burning the beasts and collecting their loot, the group returned to a safer path with an even higher appraisal of Seo Dojin. Yu-yun looked at him with starry eyes from behind. Everyone thought the same thing. The man leading this expedition was definitely beyond human level. Some placed him above the iconic hero, Chabriel Ponce. Some would even go so far as to compare him to Dojin, on the same level as Ken Laster, the strongest hero in the world today. The journey back to the normal route was not without obstacles. They had barely entered the swampy area, and some macabre humanoid creatures had already approached to bother them. These monsters don't know how to read the room at all. The undead have no brains. After all, they are nothing more than a bunch of corpses, moving with the sole purpose of devouring. Their attack might have seemed intimidating at first, but it was too simple. A fist extended and knocked one of the ghouls away with a single blow. Seotajin continued his killing spree after a short break. This time, again with a headshot, he needed no weapons or sophisticated techniques. The undead could be caught by his hands and sent back to the underworld. Once he got into rhythm, it was basically over. A flurry of exploding heads in quick succession rang out as the ghouls fell one by his own hands. Seo Dojin ripped each of them from their bodies. This time, the guild members accepted that they were just spectators and stayed back to watch the highlights. A few moments later, after looting everything they could salvage from the ghouls, the group continued on their way. As they walked, Yu-yon couldn't contain her curiosity, so she asked Du-hun about his sword prowess, the movement that produced the radiant flashes. Specifically, she was obviously referring to the first form of the sword skills, and the bandalin, a miracle born from a single point. He asked her without much enthusiasm if she wanted to learn it, and Yu Jion's face immediately lit up. But in a world as peaceful as this, he saw no reason to teach someone something so op. Huang could feel that this man was underestimating her too much. She is also an S-rank hero. On paper, they are on the same level. Seeing the defiant look in her eyes, Dojin seriously considered teaching her the bandalin sword technique. In the end, she accepted that he wouldn't budge and pouted like a child who didn't get the toy. She wanted to keep everyone on track, so Ho made the decision to abandon the rift for the time being. The last leg of the return journey passed without a hitch, and the group reached the exit rift. Thanks to Dojin's effort, they exited the area without casualties or injuries. Next time, they will re-enter with the goal of closing the rift. Who knows, maybe that attempt will be even faster. Everyone exited the rift one by one, and Ho was the last to come out on the other side. Immediately, she heard a heated argument in Japanese. Someone had been camping outside the rift to cause trouble and create confusion. The more Ho listened, the more she recognized whose rude voice it was. In the middle of the fight, Seo Du-hun inexplicably had his hand around Yu-yon's waist. In front of them was Ryoma Takashi, a former S-rank Yakuza hero and master of the Teikoku Guild. He had his guys with him. According to Ryoma, he was supposed to have fun with Yuyon today. But this unknown kid dared to stand in his way. He threatened to smash Do-hun's face if he didn't get out of the way. Ryoma surpassed him in stature, but he couldn't appear more indifferent to the threats. He even replied in perfect Japanese, which the former CEO Do-hun must have learned and studied before. Ryoma didn't like at all being disrespected in his native language. Feeling their boss's anger, the Yakuza thugs yelled at Do-hun to bow his head and apologize from the bottom of his heart. They kept repeating that their master was not to be trifled with, while they could bark all day. CEO Do-hun couldn't care less. To put it plainly, he firmly told Ryoma to scram, watching as the situation unfolded. In-whose concern grew by the second. Tekoku is ranked among the top 5 guilds in Japan. Ryoma Takashi is a thug famous for his violent temper, even for Do-hun. Perhaps it's better to stay out of this mess, trying to mediate between the two warring parties. She decided to intervene to calm things down. Janin-ho was calm and respectful in her approach, but Ryoma called her a bitch who shouldn't meddle. This time, her team was enraged. They were blatantly disrespecting their guild master. It could have easily escalated into a guild war, but In-ho kept her guys in check despite the insulting words. Janin-ho formally introduced herself as the guild master of Clum and proposed that they resolve the conflict without escalating the situation. Ryoma simply spat on their peaceful agreement. He had never heard of the insignificant Korean guild, so why would he care? Going even further, Ryoma offered to let In-ho taste his 5-centimeter beast. After finishing with Yuyon, he proceeded to forcefully grab Yuyon, but Do-hun's body blocked that grab. Irritated, Ryoma finally showed his teeth after barking for so long, and his fist gave Do-hun's cheek a little kiss. He thought that would be enough to knock out a nobody and have some fun. Meanwhile, the stupid Yakuza also revealed that he had some unfinished business with Do-hun. It can be deduced that this maneuver is nothing more than a calculated grand provocation. If that's the case, Do-hun is willing to play along. He immediately retaliated by punching Ryoma on the same cheek. His punch was notably more effective. He sent the Japanese cliché flying towards his gang. The toughest Yakuza, who were shouting obscenities, did not expect to see their boss in such a state. Do-hun advised everyone to stay out of it, as these jerks had thrown the first punch. Therefore, anything that happened next could be considered self-defense. The Yakuza thugs drew their respective weapons and prepared to counterattack. But the boss called for a one-on-one, Ryoma, who took off the jacket covering his chiseled physique, and ordered his men to step back, awakening the power that lay dormant within him. The former Yakuza member demonstrated why he is one of Japan's best. Before the inevitable fight began, Yuyon turned to Do-hun to give him some advice. She didn't bother to convince him or anything like that. She just asked her man to at least leave the poor Japanese gangster half dead. What happened next was perhaps not what one might expect from the guys from Japan. It was a surprise, but for the expedition group, it was business as usual. CEO Dojin is absolutely brutal. The Yakuza bastard who kept insulting him. Ryoma had his head buried in the ground as Dojin's shoe heels stomped him deeper with each stomp. Miraculously, Ryoma managed to escape that embarrassing situation by shrinking. He crawled back to his guys while trying to reevaluate his life decisions. Who the hell had he messed with? How could he be human? This is not what he had been told. Look at those eyes. Seadohin is not a man to be trifled with. Looking into his eyes was like a death sentence. Every fiber of Ryoma's being screamed at him to run or die. Undoubtedly, it didn't matter if it was embarrassing to run after declaring war and starting the fight. He just wanted to run and never see Dojin again. Unfortunately, he had to finish what he started. The young man shot forward like the wind and appeared in his escape path, looking at the defeated gangster. Dojin asked if someone had orchestrated this fight. He already had a pretty clear idea of who was behind these dirty tactics. There was no point in denying it. Dojin grabbed Ryoma by his greasy hair, and the hardened Yakuza pleaded for his life. The gangster had taken a drastic turn in his tone. Dojin was disgusted by his lack of character and slapped him hundreds of times in a matter of seconds. Mid-beatdown, he clenched his fist to inflict real damage. CEO Dojin proceeded to pummel the gangster's ugly face. He beat that son of a bitch to a pulp. Bystanders were paralyzed with shock and fear. It's not every day you see an S-rank fighter being bullied like a Manhwa character in high school. After many blows, too many to count, he released Ryoma's inert body. She hoped her man would win, but this was even more uneven and graphic than she thought. After a short break, Dojin went back for more, inflicting further trauma on the bastard. He carefully placed his heels on the back of Ryoma's neck, with everyone watching. He slowly increased the force of his steps, silently threatening to crush the boy's skull with his foot. At this rate, one of Japan's valuable S-rank players could really die here. Inhu nudged Yuyeon to say something. She snapped out of her daze and pleaded with Do-hin to stop before they crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. In response, he calmly stated that he would take responsibility for his actions. Yuyeon was fed up with his nonchalance and pulled the guy out of that unnecessary mess. Firstly, he shouldn't do anything he would have to take responsibility for. Still, Dojin had seen more than enough scum like Ryoma, and found it better to kill such people instead of leaving loose ends. But this is the modern world. Inhu and Yuyeon don't want him to get his hands dirty with trash like this to convince Dojin that the Yakuza have learned their lesson. Inhu urged the thugs to surrender and stay away, unless they wanted to end up like their boss. These jerks immediately knelt and swore never to mess with Dojin again. But Dojin is a hard man to please. It's not enough for him that they kneel theatrically. He wants to see his enemies' heads on the ground, begging for their insignificant lives, knowing that this guy could probably take down 3 of them with a single blow. The thugs did as he asked, quite convincingly. Dojin also mentioned that Yakuza members should cut off their fingers when they mess up, for fear of losing their pinkies. The thugs slammed their heads against the ground, even harder and lower, as they pleaded for forgiveness. So Dojin gave them an out. All they had to do was say, "I'm a piece of crap and I'm sorry," and they would get off with a warning. With clenched lips, the gangsters swallowed their pride for the sake of survival. They said the magic phrase word for word. The Cleom Guild spectators felt vindicated by how Do-hin handled the threat. Even the battered S-rank fighter had to utter the humiliating phrase. After resolving the dispute, they called the matter closed and returned to the coalition headquarters. The next day in sunny Sao Paulo, Brazil, Eugene and Inju met at the Brazilian Hero Association office to report on what had happened the previous day. Reading the events that had occurred on paper was a bit hard to believe. The report summarized how an S-rank hero like Ryo Matakashi had been beaten into incapacitation by a single man. There are a lot of eyewitnesses, but it's still hard to accept. The Brazilian Hero Association truly hoped that Korea and Japan would collaborate closely in the quest to close the problematic Sanoram rift. If the report is accurate, the Brazilian Association won't have to get involved. They will simply hand over the case to the respective hero associations of Japan and Korea to make an internal decision. Once this is resolved, they move on to the part of the report concerning the group's journey near Santarin. For now, everything seems normal. The representative of the Brazilian Hero Association kept seeing Seo Dojin's name appear in the reports. So he asked if he could see the guy, but that would be impossible at that moment, since Dojin had stayed behind to supposedly finish some business. Inside a solitary hospital room, a poor patient covered in bandages and barely recognizable with his shattered face opened his eyes to a nightmare vision. Dojin had gone to visit his victim with flowers in hand before Ryoma could make a scene. The executioner ordered him to stay still and claimed he was there on an official hospital visit. He then reached into the bouquet of flowers and pulled out the lynx eye he had hidden inside. Dojin forced Ryoma to participate in an intense and unfair staring contest with the gangster, completely under the lynx's mesmerizing power. It was time to get information about the man behind the provocation. Dojin remained in that hospital room, interrogating his victim for quite some time. When he finished, the infamous Ryoma Takashi had turned into a clumsy idiot with a fried brain. He kept calling himself despicable trash that caused problems for the Korean guilds. His mind was completely shattered, and the loose cannon had been eliminated. When Dojin left the room, Ryoma had been completely lobotomized. He kept repeating that the Yakuza were crap. Knowing how to deal with persistent enemies while cultivating aura is a mark of a truly great protagonist. Rumors about the confrontation between Korean and Japanese heroes quickly leaked and spread across all major media outlets. Some articles detailed the beating, others showed the aftermath, and most publications tried to get a statement from the rising star. The president of the Korean Hero Association, Na Tae-wang, is aware of what people think. He knows his new signing is monopolizing the news. The reaction is explosive. Reports about Dojin filled the airwaves. The association also received news that the Japanese Hero Association had dropped its investigation. Reo Matakashi himself asked his government to stop it. This was strange, considering he is known for being an impulsive person who always looks for a fight whenever he gets a chance. For an entire country to back down, something else must have happened. As for what that something was, Nada Yuan had no idea. The old man couldn't shake the feeling that, with Dojin at the center, the balance of the world had already begun to shift. At that moment, only one day remained until the operation to close the Brazilian fault zone began. The Korean team that had arrived earlier had just finished adapting and familiarizing themselves with the area. Everyone exchanged and shared joint operation plans, rigorously refining the strategy. The rest of the heroes recruited from around the world had also gathered to encourage success and cooperation. The Brazilian government organized a kind of pre-battle festival. The star of the event was, of course, the enigmatic media darling, Seo Do-hun. Bro bought a trench coat to maximize his aura in the banquet hall, overflowing with all kinds of delicacies. Do-hun conversed very well with heroes from other countries. The news that he had utterly crushed Reo Matakashi had spread throughout the world. It's natural that everyone wanted to know the sordid details. Everyone who approached Do-hun talked to him about the incident. However, he never responded with a hint of arrogance. In-ho carelessly commented that, compared to the man of the hour, Yu Jian, and she were like normal people. This was the kind of comment that would have provoked a response from the S-ranker. But she remained silent, seemingly lost in thought as she wondered what had put her in such a bad mood. In-ho looked around the room. She saw Do-hun interacting with some big names from the hero world, looking at the incredibly beautiful woman clinging to him. Yu-yeon's mood finally made sense. That woman is Gloria Tyler, an American S-ranker, voted the most beautiful heroine in the world. In-ho put two and two together and gave her friend a firm pat on the back. She yelled at Yu-yeon to stop being childishly angry, to get up and go talk to her man. Yu-yeon didn't quite know how to interact with Do-hun outside the rift, but she still approached him. It's true that she seemed out of place, timidly looking at the floor instead of at her fellow heroes. Do-hun noticed a slight blush on her cheeks and couldn't help but smile in amusement. Gloria Tyler caught the hint and said goodbye to him. Curiously, she referred to Do-hun as Carcel, his true name in his previous life. It seems he introduced himself as such to Gloria. Even Yu-yo had no idea what Carcel was about. She guessed that Carcel must be his Western name or something. In a way, she wasn't wrong. It was just a name he used before Seo Dojin. With the scarce information she had, she wondered if this guy had lived abroad as a child. But that couldn't be possible. She had already thoroughly investigated his background. Yu-yeon was clearly upset that another woman had learned before her that Dojin had another name. While they chatted quietly in the middle of the banquet, a jerk stealthily approached, discreetly with a glass of liquor in hand. Kanjumpio listened in his head and cursed his Japanese friend for not being able to handle a single guy. At this rate, he would hate to have to intervene himself, while inwardly he seethed with eagerness to tear Do-hun apart. His huge ears caught Yu-yeon whispering a warning. She reminded her man that, although he was strong, enemies don't always play fair. Reo Matakashi had some close friends in his circle. The only one they had to worry about was in that hall. Do-hun interrupted her before she could name the obvious mastermind. He continued asserting that he didn't need to know who was coming. It was going to be the same shit, but with a different ass. Just like Takashi, the mastermind is nothing more than a dirty, arrogant clown with no skills. Men like that aren't worth worrying about. Do-hun emphasized that feeling strongly as he slowly shifted his gaze towards the direct target looming behind. Ken Yompio quickly turned around and pretended not to have heard anything, but he did. This guy is about to fail in his role. The icing on the cake of this masterful performance to provoke anger was Dojin's shy smile, openly mocking young Pio. The provocation succeeded. Young Pio doesn't want to send another hired thug. He wants to personally deal with the Dojin problem. After the eve of battle festival, the heroes rested and were deployed the following night. In-ho, her guild, Yu-yeon, and Do-hun had gathered outside the rift assigned to their team, and were forced to pause for a moment. The rift zone near Santarin seemed murkier, darker, and much more sinister than usual. Still, some of the guys considered this ominous change insignificant. considering they had two competent S-rank heroes among them. They could just rush in and close that damn thing. What could go wrong? With some apprehension, Inju gave the order to her men to advance. From the side, Dojin had a grim look in his eyes as he observed the overgrown rift. He could feel something coming. The women had no idea what he was referring to, but his ominous words made them uneasy. It was faint and hard to notice, but the mana density in the area was increasing at an abnormal rate. Inside the rift, floating in the air, an entity with extremely long nails watched a phone displaying a progress meter that was currently around 23%. The owner estimates that 30% is just around the corner. According to his calculations, this level of power should be enough to kill the useless insects who call themselves heroes, and who crawl through the rift as soon as they entered. Everyone felt their bodies being hampered by something heavy in the air. Moving was very difficult. The density of the air made breathing difficult. All these problems point to a drastic change in the quality of the mana surrounding them at that moment, even denser than that of the Padazua forest. Yuyon had never seen this man so tense. She couldn't help but worry about today's mission. However, they are committed to carrying out the job to the end, being the capable leader she is. Injured, she kept her guys in check and calmed their nerves, explaining that the unusual weight they felt was just a characteristic of the rift zone. With more difficulty moving, they couldn't afford to let their guard down, knowing that the S-rankers were their best insurance policy. Inhu respectfully asked them to focus on protecting the formation as much as possible, until they figured out why the mana density had changed. It was the safest course of action, so they both agreed that no matter what happened, the goal was to close the rift, no matter what else. The Cleon boys seemed willing to follow their leader to hell and back. Around the time Dojin was entering the Santerme anomaly, another group had gathered in the rift zone near Manaus, the largest city in northern Brazil. Well, a joint team of French, Korean, and Brazilian heroes has been sent. They are failing miserably. These guys are getting beat up and eaten, leveling up solo. They had beaten the ants. We have killer bees. The overconfident foreign heroes. They thought they would easily overcome this hellish mission. These bees should have been easy, free prey for C-rank heroes. But here they are, being torn apart by giant insects. Even the A-rank heroes among them were falling like flies. The killer bees had no respect for human life. They have killer in their name. What did you expect? The only remaining hero tried his luck against one of the flying creatures, and his fist hit it squarely. It was useless. His body had become so heavy that he couldn't project the desired power. Normally, he alone could shatter an entire colony of these bees in this place. But they are not the cleanup squad. They are nothing more than defenseless prey for the true hunters. It's hard to tell how many of these so-called heroes will make it out alive. Back in San Erd, the injured man narrowly dodged a heavy axe blow in his first encounter. Standing before the squad was a battalion of black orcs. They weren't normal black orcs either. Like the killer bees, they were abnormally stronger than their classification indicated. Still, the Cleon boys kept up the pressure and executed their combos. Unfortunately, launching an attack that deals no damage is not the recipe for victory. Even with perfect teamwork, they cannot break the Black Orcs' titanic defense. Caught with their pants down, the Cleon boys were almost wiped out by a full axe swing. Hyun had to intervene to drag them to a safer distance from the beasts. She also yelled at them for rushing in recklessly. Once the rookies were safe, Yu Yeon plunged back into the fray. The Black Orc tried to trip her in midair, but the S-rank fighter dodged the fierce attacks with elegance and mastery. After showing off some impressive dance moves, she turned the tables and went on the offensive with a roundhouse kick with a superhuman response. In time, the monster quickly spun to defend its vulnerable bald head. Yu Yeon's feigned collapse worked. She avoided the spin and the elevated roundhouse kick soared even higher. From the heavens, it descended with the force of a meteor. With one of the Black Orcs down, the remaining beasts were determined to avenge their fallen comrade. Through a clever maneuver, Yu Yeon tricked the enraged orc into inflicting self-damage with its heavy bone club. Realizing what it had done to its comrade, the orc stopped in fear, which gave Yu Yeon the opportunity to approach from behind with her lightning-fast movement. This time, she didn't need any elaborate movement patterns. All it took was a simple kick to the back of the neck. The Cleon boys watched Julian in action, closely due to the destructive enigma called Asio Dojin. They almost forgot that Haiyan Yujian is also S-rank, a being superior to normal mortals like them. There was one last black orc. This one tried to act tough with a screeching war cry. Fortunately, a fist flew to break its jaw, silencing it completely. Yujian had her moment of glory. Dojin is just cleaning up the last remnants of trash. Injured, they felt helpless. They had barely left the rift entrance, but the difficulty level was already very high. Even with the S-rankers approaching, this place was not going to be a walk in the park. After finishing off the orcs, Dojin approached the corpses to investigate them, and Yuyon followed him curiously. He pointed out the faint black ripple surrounding the beast. It's hard to see with untrained eyes, but it's really there if you focus hard enough. Dojin is now sure that this black ripple is empowering the monsters to a ridiculous degree. Its presence and effect were consistent with dark mana, something that shouldn't exist in this world. It seems he's in a talkative mood today, as he explained what the black ripple means for this mission. Deep inside the Sandarum Rift, they reached a different biome and encountered a different class of monsters. They looked like heaps of slimy goo, a fierce pack of swamp creatures. Against these slimy bastards, the Cleon boys rejoined the fight to show they could contribute. They were quick and precise with their rehearsed rotations, but the damage simply wasn't enough. Perhaps another two-man combo could break through. Cooperation only gets them so far. They managed to incapacitate one of the swamp monsters, but it wasn't enough to kill it. They were used to dealing with normal swamp ghouls, but this was a different species. Completely exposed. The boys were trapped in the petrifying mud. The spear guy managed to recover, but his shield-bearing partner took the full brunt of the force. The attack was strong enough to shatter a high-end combat suit. Every attack is lethal. Despair, helplessness, and confusion plagued their minds as they continued to resist. A lapse in judgment could put your life in danger if you didn't pay close attention to your surroundings. Fortunately, Guildmaster In Ho was attentive to any suspicious movements from the slimes. With her boys in danger, her combat instincts awakened. John In Ho wielded her sword as if it were an extension of her body, demonstrating how she had risen to the top through her own strength. Still, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. If the swamp ghouls were so strong, the Valkyras would be even worse. For a moment, a terrifying thought crossed her mind. What if all the fissure zones in the world undergo this kind of change? Meanwhile, let's see what's happening in the other fissure zone near Manaus. In this one, the rookies weren't lucky enough to have reliable players. The only survivor of one of the groups frantically runs through the forest with his life on the line. The Brazilian Arbado, the French David, and many others have fallen. Those two guys were supposed to be invincible. They were S-rank players. However, they were eliminated by a few Valkyries. Fierce monstrous spiders. While easily defeating the swamp ghouls, Eugen and Dohun bring up the topic of the fierce insect waiting for them at the end of the rift. Dohun clearly remembers that a Velcro imbued with dark mana is especially dangerous. If those spiders have been infected by the same black aura, they will be difficult to handle. While discussing the final boss, Yu Jun continued to punch the slimy monsters out of existence. Likewise, Dohun was giving everyone a crash course on the highly concentrated mana that pours directly into a monster's body. Yu Jun asked if he was referring to the blue bar players used to cast spells in video games. It seems he's not going to get anywhere with a lecture. In this world, nobody even knows that the biggest difference between heroes and common people is their ability to harbor and use mana. Interrupting his high-level lecture, Dojin pierced the body of a swamp ghoul and pondered the implications of a world that doesn't even have the concept of mana. Now it makes sense why the world was so peaceful compared to his previous world. At this rate, that peace might be about to break, but for now, he will brute force his way out of this swampy camp with his bare hands. Dojin easily finished off the larger swamp ghouls in the blink of an eye. The Cleon boys seemed to have been through a war. On the other hand, their S-rank babysitters looked pristine, as they were now safe. Dojin devised an easier-to-understand explanation of the properties of black mana. In short, the monsters in this rift are like athletes pumped full of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. He found humanity's severe lack of knowledge about this simple concept strange and unsettling. Leaving behind the swamp ghoul territory, Dojin took on the role of navigator and led the team away from the area where Valkyras appear. They also reduced their pace of advance to a slow walk. A few minutes later, injured, he gave the stop signal and the entire team halted. They hit the mark and found the place where a Valkyra hid its feeding cocoons. Wrapped in the toughest silk, the killer bees and black orcs were captured and stored for later use. It's safe to assume the monster responsible for this gruesome scene is nearby. But according to their de facto leader, they can relax a bit. Instead of looking for the beast itself, he stumbled upon the true danger, and it's a good thing he did. His hand launched more of those fire bursts. The targets were motionless, so you know the aim is impeccable. Each energy ball exploded, burning the cocoons and the dead monsters wrapped in them. Valkyries that have absorbed dark mana have the ability to control their dead prey like puppets. Destroying them now would pay off in the final fight. Leaving them alone would be a recipe for disaster. With the secret weapon destroyed, now all that remains is to finish off the horrible spider. The team looked at him as if he were crazy, considering what they had seen. It's a reasonable reaction. Inhui and the others were amazed that, even in a seemingly hopeless situation, he acted as if he knew exactly what to do. Everyone was blinded by his strength, but at this point, his overall abilities seemed beyond human. Yuhuhuhu joked about his encyclopedic knowledge and his decision-making process, similar to a machine, and timidly asked him if this was his second life, or something like that. Upon hearing the question, Du-hun let out a heartfelt laugh. For a brief instant, he fondly remembered who he used to be. Karsel goes around saying that Seo Du-hun can truly be considered a second life. Changing the subject, he asked In-ho how far they were from the core, with the map and their position engraved in her mind. She calculated they were halfway after traversing the next jungle at their current pace. It would be a rather long road, but Dajin claimed they could close the rift before the day was out. This crazy idea might be possible for Dajin, but for the Cleon boys, a day-long sprint would be too much. Most of them had already exhausted their stamina fighting the swamp ghouls. If they can't keep going, they can rest. Dajin cannot afford to waste time. He would take care of the giant spider alone and return once he was done, without saying anything else. He left in a wind-borne gust. He left everyone behind, leaving no room for discussion. Everyone went through hell. However, that man still has the energy to tear through the forest like an unstoppable freight train. As the forest blurred in the background, his eyes constantly moved to capture details that could lead him to the final fight with his expert tracking skills and a vague idea of the Valkyra's nest location. He finally spotted his target. The Valkyra is a nasty, scaly, spiky beast. Its abdomen is coated in strong armor and protruding blades. It also bit a guy named Peter Parker once. However, none of that matters. Seo Du-hun leaped into the air and began his swinging motion with his sword still in its sheath. He started the exotic cooking show by slicing off the spider's legs, which were thicker than steel. Judging by the insect's horrible shriek, losing 3 legs at once sure hurts. Enraged, the Valkyra opened its maw and shot out sticky silk like a goner who just got internet access. It was a big missed hit, as Dajin masterfully jumped out of the web's trajectory. He moved all over the place at superhuman speed. There's no point in prolonging the fight when the difference is so great, with crisscrossing cuts. The exotic culinary show concludes. Dajin sliced and diced the Valkyra into multiple pieces, and this guy still had time to adjust his position to land perfectly and gather auras. The monster that had massacred a bunch of S-rank players in the other rift zone was crushed in just a few seconds. He stood up, exhaled deeply, and examined his body for changes. Surprisingly, his stamina was still at its peak, with no signs of fatigue. This might have something to do with the dark mana he absorbed through his mana cultivation technique. After taking down the strongest monster, Hare, in the rift, Dajin returned to camp as if he had just taken a leak in the forest. Or something. Yuyeon and Inhu didn't have to ask him if he had done what he set out to do. They just knew it was him. The guy doesn't even look tired in the slightest. His hoodie was splattered with blood everywhere, but not a single drop belonged to him, since he can't sense any dangerous monsters nearby. This jungle should be the perfect place to camp and rest. After starting the fire, everyone sat down to rest. Those with injuries were attended to, and those who were relatively unharmed chatted. Then there's Seo Du-hun, quietly roasting his spider meat on a stick. One of the Cleon boys, the one with the spear, peered over to see what he was doing. He grew curious and approached the unapproachable leader in a friendly tone. He asked Du-hun if he could try his meat too. You know, he has a lot of meat, so sharing a bit with others was no big deal. Seeing their comrades sitting and dining with Du-hun, another Cleon boy approached. The spear boy wanted to try Du-hun's meat, thinking it was the secret to his strength, since they had nothing to lose. The boys gathered around the fire to get some of Dojin's meat. Everyone watched them with great interest as they brought the meat to their mouths. Dojin liked seeing the boys share his meat. It's not good for much more than filling your stomach, but he doesn't dislike people who just want to get stronger. As a small gift, he cunningly manipulated his mana to infuse them with a small boost. On a whim, the effect of the infusion was immediately evident. Of course, the boys attributed the warm energy flowing through their bodies to the meat. Seeing them smile radiantly also made Dojin briefly break his stoic expression. After dinner, they continued planning the route with the map laid out. Ho pointed the straight path towards the core of the rift. It had been a long day, and everyone was exhausted. It would be safer to return and continue the next day, although Dojin claimed the rift should be closed that same day. Their backpacks were already full of loot, and it would be wiser to retreat and come back later. Yu Yong also agreed with In Hu's assessment. Previous fights had depleted their stamina, and dark mana-imbued monsters were too troublesome to deal with. Well, the original plan was to delay closing the rift zone as much as possible. This way they could gather as many rare materials as possible, including the heart of the blue crocodile. They were supposed to turn the rift into an infinite resource glitch. But the sudden appearance of dark mana changed that original plan. Drastic changes like this are never a good sign within the rift. Furthermore, he could feel there was something strange about the dark mana floating in the air, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Dojin grabbed his sack and emptied its contents onto the ground. The sack was full of the shiny red eyes of the Valkyra. He asked the ladies to take all this legendary loot to the hotel first. Since they were determined to retreat, they might as well keep their share of the loot. Before returning to the deep, dark forest, he promised to close the rift and join the group. Soon, on his way to the core of the rift, Dojin encountered many annoying obstacles. The first were the newly respawned swamp ghouls crawling through the murky waters. He must have killed dozens of them. At that moment, he was showing off with these slimy beasts as he continuously moved, since using his bare hands was getting a bit boring. His eyes sharpened, and he unsheathed his sword. The blood of the swamp monsters stained his sword as the ghouls disintegrated around him. You see, the key to killing them quickly and easily was to aim for the core from the start. In the opposite direction he was heading, the Clum Guild and Hai and Yu Yon took the route to the exit as soon as the sun rose. Walking alongside her dear friend, Ho expressed her concern for Dojin. Yu Yon assured her that he would be fine if he still had energy to shoot off like a bullet after saying a few words. Then he still had the energy to defend himself. She said that, but In Ho could see the sadness practically painted on her face. Yu Yun lowered her head in shame, not out of concern for Du-hun. She felt like an imposter calling herself an S-ranker next to that man. She couldn't think of anyone else in the world on his level. Moving elegantly in the air, Du-hun's sword swept down on a black orc's head. He gave that poor orc the most painful haircut in the world. Half of its brain and skull were shattered with a single slash. Keeping pace, he changed targets and struck another black orc's bald head. His impassive massacre rightly enraged the remaining orcs. Seeing them throw their little tantrums made Dojin sneer a bit. A careless axe swing came his way, and he seemed to vanish into thin air. When he reappeared, this guy had a bunch of pre-made destructive fireballs in his hand. He cast a series of spells at the orcs, burning their bodies and inflicting an agonizing death. By the time he finished backtracking through the orc lair, he had exterminated the entire population. With each kill, his loot sack grew heavier. By then, Yu Yon and Ho and the boys had finally exited through the rift they entered, with bags full of valuable materials. They headed to cash in as they made their way to the safety of the city. Du-hun was alone, fighting in the rift in broad daylight. He killed a blue crocodile without blinking. Stained with the blood of his victims, Dojin continued to increase his kill count while the corpse was still relatively fresh, and ripped the heart from the reptile's chest. After the successful harvest, he threw that large heart into a jar, sealed it tightly to keep the material in its optimal state, and added even more cuts to his latest victim's body. He got 2 more crystals for the loot bag. Camping in the Blue Croco's lair proved to be surprisingly profitable, with such a high spawn rate. Once they stopped appearing, Dojin gathered his things to move to another area. Outside the rift, inside the Situation Room of the Brazilian Hero Association headquarters, government technicians have been working tirelessly to oversee the joint expeditions. For the first time since the operation began, headquarters received a positive notification. According to map readings, the fault zone in Santarem had disappeared. For a minute, the technicians couldn't believe what they were seeing on the screens. When they realized the reality, cheers of success echoed through the Situation Room. They quickly investigated what had happened in the sector and discovered that only one Korean team was deployed in that location. The group was registered under the name Clean Guild, but how could that group have eliminated a rift when they had just contacted headquarters to report their tactical retreat just 10 minutes ago? It didn't make sense. The people at headquarters were baffled. You see, 10 minutes earlier, our boy was in the middle of an intense, fierce fight against a disgusting opponent, the ravenous two-headed ogre. Observing the mutated beast, Dajin realized that this monster had undergone rapid evolution due to dark mana enrichment. The beast stomped the ground, and the resulting tremor almost made him lose his balance. Behind this last obstacle, the rift core floated over the wide open land, eager to end this long night. Quickly, Seo Dajin changed his usual stance. After stomping the ground, the ogre decided to abuse the reach advantage of its arms. Dajin's sword tip began to heat up rapidly. At the same time, the ogre's colossal fist became a full-blown punch. No matter how small the opening the opponent makes, Seo Dajin will see a way to break through. With his sword hot and ready, he unleashed the Bandian sword skills. Second form with fire capable of eradicating everything in its path. Grammy Gramora Poera. The sweeping magic blazed. The two-headed ogre could not be prepared for what was coming. A perfectly straight slash aligned against the monster's shoulder before it could respond. It left a deep, long wound on the ogre's body, causing it to roar in pain. In combat, Seo Duhun can finally let loose and smile like a madman, and he's only just begun. Without letting the monster catch its breath, he charged with the flaming sword in hand. He was too fast to defend against. He was practically tearing apart the two-headed bitch. Desperate, the ogre raised its fist and tried to punch, concentrating all the force of its compact muscles. Dajin masterfully moved with verticality as he prepared another attack. This time, instead of a single slash, multiple crisscrossing lines cut the beast into pieces. Not even the nearby trees were spared from his sharp combination. Without regard for his surroundings and no rookie heroes nearby, Dajin can finally stretch his muscles. At that moment, the ogre knew it was over. It has two heads and two brains, doubling the fear. Instinctively, it tried to avoid the deadly attack by jumping out of its range. At first, it seemed the beast might gain enough space to evade the carnage. In the end, one of its legs was caught by the sweeping magic. It tore through skin, flesh, and bone with a clean cut, and its two heads loudly whimpered in pain. And the beast lost its balance and was left with one less leg. Dajin's next attack was a guaranteed critical hit. The second form of the Bandian sword technique is a brutal stance that can cut even the most powerful enemies into pieces. When the two-headed ogre landed, it looked like it was raining flesh. Dajin took a deep breath and sheathed his sword. Then he turned his attention to the dungeon's rift core in front of him and stared fixedly into the eye of the abyss. He carefully noted the core's properties. He realized that the density of dark mana near it remained constant, without any change. That means the core has nothing to do with the anomaly. It is highly probable that the dark mana is being pumped by an external factor. Someone is doing this on purpose. To flood a rift zone with dark mana at such high levels would require great power. Dajin estimates that someone at the level of an undead lord or an imperial lich must be behind this malicious manipulation. But if a being of that level is truly responsible for the anomaly, most of life on Earth should already be enslaved as undead soldiers. At this moment, it is difficult to identify an immediate suspect. In any case, closing the rift will not end this anomaly. If there is an external factor behind it. Dajin clenched his fist and struck the rift core with all his might. A single blow was enough to shatter that swirling mass of energy. Cracks spread rapidly, and everything shattered into tiny fragments. Dajin has taken it upon himself to investigate and locate whoever is interfering with these rifts. At the Brazilian heroes' headquarters, reports on the multiple expeditions have reached the association president. Reading the full summary of what had been happening around the rifts made him shudder. Every line of text documenting the expeditions was unbelievable. On one hand, they sent a joint team of experienced heroes from 3 nations. but only one S-rank hero returned alive. On the other hand, a single Korean team managed to close their rift without any casualties. Headquarters is still receiving breaking news from other fissure zones. Practically all attempts have failed, and traumatized heroes are desperately retreating, despite selecting teams to have at least one S-rank hero among them. The first round turned out to be a resounding failure. The only positive aspect was the successful closure by Hyun Yuyeon's Korean team. But according to reports, it's difficult to attribute the success to the Korean team. The president pulled out the file and examined the San Orem report more closely. It stated that the rift closed after they had already exited the portal. It just didn't make sense. It's hard to comprehend how the rift closed. They need to hear what really happened from Haeun Yujian herself. Fortunately, she is already on her way to headquarters and will arrive any moment. From the moment Yujian and Inju's team exited the rift until they reached headquarters, just over an hour had passed. In that short span, Dojin closed the first rift zone without breaking a sweat. Now he has entered the second nearby rift zone. He quickly determined that its core was underwater, like the gigachad he is. Dojin plunged into the monster-infested waters. Across the country, the president of the Brazilian Hero Association had just learned exactly what had happened in the San Orem rift. He found it unbelievable. Even though the accounts came directly from Yuyeon's mouth, it's still hard to believe that a single man sped through a rift plagued by the so-called dark mana. Yuyeon was not present during the last part of Do-hun's solo mission, but she is 100% sure that he took care of the problem himself. The president was forced to accept this fact. He shared classified information with Yu Jian about the catastrophic failure of the other teams. Several S-rank heroes have died in other rift zones, not beating around the bush. Yu Jian admitted that she would have been part of that statistic if not for Do-hun. According to the information currently available, it's hard to believe her report. But she also conveyed valuable information about the dark mana that overpowered monsters to possess power exceeding even S-rank heroes. Yuyeon was calm. She shared what needed to be shared. It's up to the association to accept it or not. To make it even harder to believe, they had just received reports that several southern rifts around San Orem had closed. The president assumed those must have been free from the influence of dark mana. Yuyeon warned the president not to think that way. She stated that the danger level of all rifts was not as it used to be. The first sign was an entrance color different from normal for now. That was the only way to check if a rift was a death trap or not. The president immediately notified his team to verify all rift entrances in Brazil. While coordinating with his people, Yuyeon stood up and left. Her work here was done. As she left the office, she quickly dialed President Na Tiwang's number of the Korean Hero Association. The old man patiently listened to Yuyeon's detailed report on her expedition and the dangers of dark mana. Fortunately, there's no indication of such a dangerous variable. However, in Korea, Taiwan will pay more attention to its fissures. If S-rankers can be annihilated like helpless animals when facing empowered monsters, this is a cause for real concern. If a boss-class monster comes into contact with such a malevolent force, the results would be much more horrifying. They may be safe for now, but Korea must prepare for the worst as much as possible. While everyone else was panicking, Seo Dojin was calmly bathing in the serene waters of the rift. The rivers, lakes, and islands of the rift. In these environments, the core is usually found underwater. Naturally, humans cannot breathe underwater. Very few heroes can fight at full strength under these highly unfavorable conditions. As far as Dojin knows, New Zealand's national hero, Ivan Looper, is the only decent S-rank hero specializing in underwater combat. Due to his highly specific specialty, he charges a high price for resolving underwater fissures worldwide. Thanks to his unique ability to breathe underwater, he could corner the market for problematic wet fissures. As Do-jun approaches the depths, he immediately feels the presence of dark mana growing denser. He takes a single deep breath and plunges into the unknown, swimming deftly through the water. Creatures near the surface posed no threat. Upon reaching a certain depth, all light seemed to disappear, possibly due to the presence of dark mana. He also noticed more ferocious-looking monsters curiously surrounding him. And as he moved further and further from land, he needed to stabilize himself underwater. He used his mana to form a membrane around his entire body, blocking the pressure and allowing him to move freely. The deeper he dove, the more he needed to adjust the strength of the mana membrane. When he reached the deepest part of the rift, Dajin had perfectly calibrated his protective membrane, allowing him to move unimpeded. Immediately, he was attacked by one of the monsters lurking in the dark. It looked like a predatory seahorse that had grown too large, as expected. He's already familiar with this complicated beast. A hurricane, it seems to be filled with unnatural power, thanks to the dark mana. Dajin clenched his fist and reinforced his protection by extending it over a larger area. In doing so, he illuminated the dark depths. The sudden burst of energy was enough to catch the hurricane off guard, killing the beast without using his weapon. The hurricane's blood, guts, and remains stained the water a disgusting crimson. The smell of the slaughter also attracted a school of bloodthirsty piranha monsters. These opportunistic carnivores greedily devoured the hurricane's disemboweled corpse. While the first wave was busy devouring the hurricane chunks, the next one focused on Dajin. Dajin thought that if Adon Lu were to witness what he was seeing at that moment, that guy would pee in his swimsuit. As soon as the second wave of piranhas entered his attack zone, Dajin eliminated them with ruthless efficiency. Without caring about the water's instability, he maintains perfect control of his body. He hunted more hurricanes. He even punched a shark in the abdomen with his feet firmly planted on the bottom. He unleashed a series of punches at a speed similar to what he would have on land. He killed fish left and right as his prey count increased. More hungry beasts gathered around his position. Dealing with these small fish is undoubtedly a nuisance. For now, Dajin decided to change position. He chose a direction and sprinted off as he fled from his marine enemies. A sense of unease overcame him. He realized he had reached an area where no other creature dared to venture in front of him. Resting on a bed of stones, there was a peculiar one-eyed fish. Dajin immediately recognized that son of a bitch. That unsettling-looking fish was an Achamos. Dajin didn't expect to meet a familiar beast here today. That excited him so much that he cracked a smile. In the previous world, all those whose names were etched into legends had one thing in common. They all hunted the infamous Achamos when they were still unknown. For the current him, this is a golden opportunity he cannot let pass. Coincidentally, the core of the dam fault zone is neatly hidden beneath where the Achamos rests. The crushed fish with a golden and purple eye positioned itself for combat. Dajin did the same, firmly planting his feet on the waterbed. These creatures have no natural enemies in the wild. Whatever it faces, it simply creates a subspace and swallows any threat. A true devourer, as expected. As soon as he got close enough, the subspace expanded in an attempt to absorb everything. Dajin struggled to avoid the worst-case scenario, being caught before he could even begin. After narrowly avoiding the initial expansion, he sneered and meticulously moved through the narrow gaps within the subspace. His movements were fluid, avoiding the infinite void on the other side of the expanding subspace. The Acremose kept its single eye fixed on the annoying human, while Dajin turned Super Saiyan. In his current position, killing the fish would be quick and easy, but if he followed that barbaric path, he wouldn't get its subspace. The only way to properly hunt this thing is through the use of pure mana suppression. This way, he can kill the Achamos and keep the subspace intact to take it. Using mana quality and brute force, Dajin pushed his performance to the limit and dominated the expanding subspace. The light and destructive power of his pure mana claimed the lives of other mana monsters lurking nearby. Those poor fish didn't know what hit them. Dajin didn't care about the minor collateral damage. He was more concerned about the Achamos' recoil. The more he tried to resist and close the distance, the more concentrated and viscous the subspace became. He was already expending an astonishing amount of pure mana, and his tank was rapidly depleting. He had no choice but to try and absorb the dark mana from the depths. In doing so, he opened his body to receive the malevolent energy while purifying it and emitting it in rapid succession. Dajin was clearly pushing his body's limits. He felt a drop of blood escape his nose and coughed up some blood. Perhaps he had overestimated his body's capacity. Meanwhile, the Achamos stared at him with that enigmatic eye, refusing to let go of the golden opportunity before it. Dajin decided to say screw it and bet everything. A few moments later, the serene flow of the rift water was interrupted by an emerging force. Dajin managed to drag the Achamos out of its territory with sheer willpower. Now that they are on solid ground, the tables have turned, and Du-hun quickly grabs the subspace in his hand, an infinite void that can be used for a wide variety of purposes. As soon as the subspace was snatched from the fish, it lost the light in its eyes and succumbed to death. Its lifeless corpse fell back into the water, while Du-hun collapsed unconscious on land. A few hours later, before the sunset, curious birds gathered around. The unconscious Du-hun woke up with a sneeze. His body expelled the water that had entered his system. The birds, naturally, got scared and flew away. Dojin opened his eyes, still exhausted from the intense underwater struggle. Fortunately, he hadn't lost his wet bag or his sword. It would be a huge hassle to dive back into those dark waters to look for them. Recalling what he had just accomplished, he sat up and tested his new power. First, he conjured pure mana around his arm and felt the quantitative change he had undergone. It's evident that his mana capacity has greatly increased compared to before. It had been worth fighting that flatfish and risking everything just for this, but the main prize at the end of that suffocating struggle was his new stolen subspace. This is the biggest gain he has made from his trip to Brazil so far. Now he no longer has to carry his bag and sword. He can store them in the void, free from the constraints of carrying his loot and weapon. Dojin stood up happily and stretched his limbs. He has already gotten a huge haul from this rift. It's time to call it a day. With the boss out of commission, he just needs to quickly close the rift and return to the lodge. It's a beautiful and productive day to be a subspace thief. Thank you.